Chapter 459. No matter what angle one looked at it from, Princess Caroline couldn't be described as greedy or vicious. However, when Sui led the motorcade to Seoul City and saw this beautiful girl with a warm smile beside Samo Count, the smile on his face became a bit awkward. "Hey, dear Chairman Su, you're finally here." When Princess Caroline saw Sui, her smile became even brighter as she greeted Sui first. "I've been waiting for you the entire time." Sui calmed down from thinking of the previous matters and said with a faint smile, "I've made your highness wait for a long time. But building a production base in Seoul City is a big matter, so we have to prepare everything ahead of time, so naturally it will take some time." "Of course I understand." Princess Caroline rolled her eyes at Sui. "But I was anxious and wanted to see you again." Seeing the smile on Samo Count's face, Sui gave a cough before nodding. He turned to Samo Count and said, "Lord City Lord, how are the preparations on your side?" Samo Count revealed a faint smile. "What? It's only been a year and you don't believe in my abilities?" Sui quickly waved his hand. "How could I dare? But I want to understand the situation so that we can start as soon as possible. There's no need to rush." Samo Count looked past Sui and fell onto the row of magic cars behind Sui before giving a satisfied nod. "You've just arrived today, so rest first and we'll discuss work tomorrow. Moreover, Princess Caroline has been waiting for you for a week, so she must have many things to say to you." Seeing the sweet smile on Princess Caroline's face, Sui resisted the urge to roll his eyes at Samo Count as he turned to call the motorcade into the city. Compared to Basara City that was much smaller than Banda City, Seoul City that was one of the top cities in the Northeast Province was much bigger. Not mentioning anything else, just Seoul City's walls were twice as tall as Basara City's walls, which was much higher than Banta City's. Moreover, the thickness was even more shocking. When they passed through the gates, Sui looked around and found that the walls near the gates were over 5 meters thick. Although it couldn't be as thick as the gates in other places, it was definitely thicker than Banta City's walls that were only made of 3 layers of bricks. Seeing Sui look at the walls, Samo Count who came with him said with a faint smile, "Seoul City is close to the northern border, so we have to be on guard against the Sak Kingdom's walls." Sui nodded before thinking of a problem. If we're talking about being close to the border, Banta City is only 100 kilometers away from the southern border, so why haven't the walls been thickened? Because the Kingdom of Ruhr is an old friend of our Lampari Kingdom. Since the Lampari Kingdom was founded, the Kingdom of Ruhr has always been our loyal ally. They have never betrayed us, so naturally we don't need to be on guard against them. Count Samo explained. Sui gave a slight nod, but he didn't agree in his heart. Although historically speaking, the Kingdom of Ruhr had always been an ally of the Lampari Kingdom, there were only benefits between countries and old friends weren't reliable. To Sui, the reason why Banta City didn't choose to strengthen the walls was most likely because they didn't have the money. The Lampari Kingdom's finances weren't rich, so other than maintaining the kingdom's operations, most of it was used to defend against the Sak Kingdom. Naturally, they didn't have any extra money to invest in other places. Even if Banta City was very rich now, when Sui and Samo Count were renovating the city, they never considered changing the walls. Sui had transmigrated from Earth, so he never thought about the problem of thickening the walls to defend against enemies. As for Samo Count, he chose to ignore it because of inertia. Actually, your Banta City's walls are much higher and thicker than the walls of many of our Drake Duchy cities. Princess Caroline on the other side of Sui gave a sigh as she looked around the walls of Seoul City. "As for walls as thick as this one, I'm afraid you won't be able to find one like this in all the cities of our Drake Duchy." Sui looked at her. Your Drake Duchy being able to survive in the gap between the Drake Duchy and the Lampari Kingdom wasn't relying on the walls. With a thought, Sui said to Princess Caroline, "Your Highness, if you have ideas about changing the walls, I have a very good plan here. As long as you change the walls according to this plan, I guarantee that unless an Arch-Magus-level magician makes a move, there won't be any problems with the walls. Princess Caroline and Samo Count were surprised as they asked at the same time, "Really? What kind of walls are these?" Sui revealed a faint smile and turned to point at the road outside Soul City. "Your Highness, Lord City Lord, I think you should know that the roads are mainly made of concrete. You should understand how strong concrete is now, right?" Princess Caroline shook her head. "I've experienced the convenience of the roads in your Lampari kingdom, but I'm not clear on how the roads are made. Your Highness, if your Drake Duchy wants to develop, my first suggestion is to build roads," Sui said with a serious look. "As long as we solve the problem of the roads and ensure that the transportation is smooth, it will be easier for the economy to develop. When I went to Banta City last time, I saw the roads between Banta City and the surrounding cities. There were countless horse carriages going back and forth, and I was shocked by this scene. If our Drake Duchy can become like this, it means that our duchy has developed," Princess Caroline said in an emotional voice. "That day will definitely come," Sui said. "Thank you." Princess Caroline gave Sui a sweet smile. "But Chairman Su, we seem to have strayed from the topic. How about you tell me about the city walls that even great magicians can't break first?" Sui didn't immediately answer this question and turned to Count Samo to ask, "Lord City Lord, do you still remember the reinforced concrete structure used in the Sandy River project?" Samo Count's eyes lit up. "Of course I remember. You mean using that structure to build the city walls? But can that structure support the city walls that high?" "Of course." Sui nodded. "In theory, as long as there is enough steel and cement, the reinforced concrete structure can even reach the sky." Princess Caroline looked up at the sky of Soul City and pursed her lips into a smile. "Chairman Su, you're just boasting, right? How could it be that high?" "You don't believe me?" Sui revealed a smile. "If you saw the skyscrapers that reached several hundred meters into the sky on Earth, you definitely wouldn't believe your eyes." Moreover, with Sui's suggestion, Chairman Cruz was leading the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to do experiments. He believed that not long from now, there would be a truly tall building in Banta City that far surpassed the current level of signs. "Alright, that's only in theory. But Sui, since you've said this, I think there shouldn't be a problem using this structure to build a high enough city wall," Count Samo said with a nod. "But there is a very important question: what is the cost of this city wall?" Hearing this question, Princess Caroline's beautiful eyes looked at Sui without blinking, as her eyes were filled with concern. "Lord City Lord, to build this kind of city wall, how much would it cost to build an average of 100 meters? Sui pointed at Soul City's city wall that was already far away, not answering this question. "For Soul City." Count Samo was silent for a bit before replying. "Not counting the manpower, it would cost around 30 to 50,000 gold coins per 100 meters. That much?" Sui was surprised. Princess Caroline looked at Sui with a confused look. "This is still considered a lot?" "Of course," Sui immediately said. 100 meters costs 30 to 50,000 gold coins, so the city walls of Soul City are at least 10 kilometers long. So wouldn't that be 3 to 5 million gold coins? Could it be that this isn't a lot? No, the total cost of Soul City's city walls is around 6 million gold coins, because you haven't counted the city gates and the watchtowers on the city walls," Count Samo added. "Sui, if you think this cost is too high, then will the reinforced concrete city walls cost a lot less per 100 meters? Seeing Princess Caroline's look of disbelief and expectation, Sui revealed a faint smile. "Of course. The reinforced concrete structure is mainly made of steel, so the cost of concrete is much lower. According to the current estimates, if we build a 3-meter thick, 5-meter tall, and 100-meter long reinforced concrete city wall, the total cost wouldn't exceed 10,000 gold coins." "That cheap?" Count Samo and Princess Caroline both had looks of disbelief. But a moment later, the two of them revealed looks of pleasant surprise. This was because the two of them knew that Sue-yi definitely wouldn't joke about this kind of thing. Princess Caroline blinked her large eyes and asked, "Chairman Sue, the reinforced concrete you mentioned, do we have to buy it from New Flyer?" Sue-yi laughed. "Otherwise, why do you think I'm trying so hard to sell the reinforced concrete city walls?" Princess Caroline looked at Sue-yi and said with a soft snort, "But you can't have us run all the way to Banta City to buy it, right?" "You're right, so after our company came to Seoul City, the first thing we built was a cement factory and then a steel mill." Chapter 460. In order to welcome the arrival of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's motorcade, that night, Count Sean held a large welcoming ceremony in Seoul City's City Lord Manor. Not only did he invite everyone from the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's motorcade, he also invited all the famous people in Seoul City, including all the nobles and merchants, as well as some officers of the Seoul City Guards. Sue-yi originally didn't want Samo Count to hold such a welcoming ceremony. He felt that it was too troublesome, but he knew that this was necessary for Samo Count to quickly integrate the New Flyer into Seoul City, so he naturally couldn't refuse. Even if Sue-yi didn't like attending banquets and dealing with this kind of situation, in order to not let down Count Sean's hard work and adding in the fact that he was the main character of this banquet, Sue-yi could only focus and talk to each guest. He even had to remember each guest's name, identity, background, and other information. If the New Flyer wanted to develop in Seoul City, even with Samo Count's support, they had to work closely with other people in the city. After dealing with a group of guests with great difficulty, Sue-yi had made initial contact with all the guests at the banquet and finally had a chance to catch his breath. Just as he raised his wine cup and took a sip, Princess Caroline suddenly appeared. "Chairman Sue, are you tired?" Seeing Princess Caroline's energetic appearance, Sue-yi was a bit puzzled. "Aren't you tired?" "Your Highness, I think you're more popular than me." "What? Are you jealous?" Princess Caroline raised her wine cup with a smile and lightly clinked it with Sue-yi's. After taking a sip, she suddenly sighed and turned around to look at the situation in the banquet hall. She faintly said, "Although I'm very popular, most of the people who came looking for me are men. They are only interested in my body and not your strength like Chairman Sue. The body is also a part of strength. I hope that they can be interested in my body. At least this will make me more confident in my handsomeness." Sue-yi smiled. Princess Caroline gave a laugh. She looked at Sue-yi with a flirtatious gaze and said with a faint smile, "Chairman Sue, actually you're already very handsome. Moreover, I'm very interested in your body." While saying this, Princess Caroline came closer to Sue-yi. She stood on her tiptoes and her face was almost touching Sue-yi's face. She let out a soft breath and the fragrance mixed with the smell of alcohol hit Sue-yi's face as she said in a charming voice, "I said it before leaving Banta City last time, Chairman Sue, I will prepare a bed in Seoul City ahead of time and wait for your arrival. Now that my bed is already prepared, are you interested in spending the night with me?" "Your Highness, you're drunk." Sue-yi took half a step back and turned his face, avoiding looking at Princess Caroline. Princess Caroline with a drunk face was very charming and her lethality was just too great. He didn't dare guarantee that if he kept being seduced like this, he wouldn't be able to keep going. Princess Caroline giggled and didn't come closer. Instead, she quickly changed the topic and said, "Chairman Sue, I'm still thinking about the reinforced concrete walls you mentioned during the day. I want to ask, if our duchy can produce our own steel bars and cement, wouldn't we be able to save a lot of money?" Sue shook his head. "I don't recommend you do this, at least not right now. The reason why the reinforced concrete is strong, other than the structure itself, the most important thing is the quality of the steel bars and concrete used. It's fine if it's concrete, but the quality of the steel bars isn't something your Drake Duchy's current technology can satisfy. If you want to solve the material problem yourself, the consequences will be very serious. Princess Caroline had a bitter smile on her face. Although I want to say that you're lying to me as a merchant, I'm very clear that Chairman Su isn't this kind of person. I think it's impossible for your new flyer to transfer the steel and concrete technology, so when will your new flyer be willing to invest in a factory in our Drake Duchy? If we produce in our duchy, at least we can save a lot of money on basic materials, right? I think that you should be clear that this decision isn't for me, rather it's for the Sac Kingdom. Sui said. Princess Caroline slightly knit her brows. She sipped her wine while seriously thinking about it. It had to be said, Princess Caroline, who normally seduced Sui, was indeed very attractive, but to Sui, he liked seeing Princess Caroline seriously think more. To him, the thing that attracted him the most was a woman who had her own thoughts and ideas. Steel could move his heart and make him choose to marry Steel because Steel was very outstanding in this aspect. After thinking for a bit, Princess Caroline put down her wine cup and revealed a faint smile again. Alright, it seems like our cooperation can only be done step by step, we can't rush it. Chairman Su, I have a small request for you, can you satisfy me? Princess Caroline asked. As long as it's not inviting me to spend the night with you, we can discuss it, Sui said. Princess Caroline was surprised, but she couldn't help laughing as she broke out in laughter. Chairman Su, could it be that I'm a female pervert in your eyes? Relax, I won't eat you. Princess Caroline rolled her eyes at Sui with hidden bitterness before seriously saying with a serious expression, My request is that when your new flyer builds a production base in Seoul City, I hope that I can visit it. Sui thought about it before saying with a nod, All right, but there are some secret things that you have to avoid. Of course. After obtaining Sui's agreement, Princess Caroline was very happy. She extended her hand to Sui and said, Chairman Su, I hope that we can have a happy cooperation. Sui also extended his hand and gently shook hers. Just as he felt the softness in his hand, Princess Caroline suddenly exerted force, making Sui involuntarily lean towards her. Then Princess Caroline stood on her tiptoes and kissed Sui's face. Chairman Su, I won't close the door tonight, I'll be waiting for you. Seeing Princess Caroline leave with a burst of laughter and fragrance, Sui rubbed his face with a bitter smile. He looked around and found that there were quite a few people looking at him with surprised gazes. Sui felt that it was a bit strange. With Princess Caroline's public image as a social butterfly, there was no way she would display such a blatant preference for him in such a public place. She couldn't have really fallen in love with him, right? Sui shook his head and threw this thought away. Turning his head, he found Samo Count waving at him not far away, so he quickly walked over. Come, Sui, let me introduce you. This is our Seoul City Guard General Merrill. You might need to cooperate in the future, so let's get to know each other first. Samo Count pointed at a tall and sturdy middle-aged man with a rough face as he spoke to Sui. Sui quickly extended his hand to Merrill. Hello, General Merrill. In the future, our company will need you and the brothers of the City Guard to take care of us in Seoul City. Merrill gave a hearty laugh and said, Chairman Su, you're too courteous. The City Lord has mentioned you a long time ago. He said that when your new flyer comes, our City Guard must cooperate with your new flyer so that your company can produce in peace in Seoul City. Don't worry, I can guarantee that you won't be disturbed in Seoul City. Then I'll have to thank General Merrill for your care. Sui, if you want someone to take care of you, you have to give them some benefits. Samo Count suddenly said with a smile. If there aren't any benefits, how can you make Merrill do his best? Sui was startled, but he saw that Merrill was also smiling. He immediately understood and laughed. Of course, the City Lord's words are right. Then may I ask, General Merrill, what benefits do you and the brothers of the City Guard want? Merrill laughed and patted Sui's shoulder. Good, I like a straightforward person like Chairman Su. Our brothers won't ask for any excessive benefit. Didn't your Chamber of Commerce provide a set of armor and weapons to each soldier of the Northern Army? Just give us a set of armor and weapons as well. Sue blinked and asked Merrill, "May I ask General Merrill, how many brothers do you have in the city guard?" "Not many, just over 8,000. Merrill replied without a care. 8,000? Sue took in a cold breath and couldn't help shaking his head. The Frestec Chamber of Commerce sold a set of armor to the Northern Army for 50 gold coins. If it was 8,000 sets, that would be 400,000 gold coins. Although it wasn't that Sue couldn't afford it, and it would be around 200,000 gold coins at the cost, Sue couldn't help feeling a bit of heartache. Hey, Sue, what are you thinking? It's not like I'm asking you to give it to me for free. Look at how scared you are. Count Samo scolded with a smile. I just want you to sell 8,000 sets of armor and weapons to our Seoul City Guard at cost price. Sue let out a sigh of relief and waved his hand. Since it's your request, then it's easy. 8,000 sets isn't enough to show my sincerity. 10,000 sets. General Merrill, are you satisfied? Satisfied. Satisfied. Of course I'm satisfied. Merrill laughed and nodded. He patted Sue shoulder again. Chairman Sue, if your new flyer needs our city guard in the future, feel free to look for me. I promise I'll do my best to help you. Watching Merrill leave, Sue rubbed his shoulder that was a bit sore from Merrill's slap. He knit his brows as he asked Count Sean, Lord Count, privately changing the equipment of your city guards, is there a problem? Count Samo smiled and shook his head. Although it will be a bit of a problem, it won't be a big problem. Moreover, I'm not just changing the equipment of the city guard. I also want to build a munitions factory in Seoul City. Sue, can your new flyer do it? Build a munitions factory? Sue looked at Count Samo in shock. Sir Count Samo, are you trying to rebel? Chapter 461. Aya. Steele suddenly called out and slightly knit her brows. Liz, who was helping Steele prepare for bed, asked in a concerned voice, What is it, madam? Are you feeling unwell? Steele shook her head with a faint smile. I'm fine, it's just that this little fellow kicked me again. Liz pursed her lips into a smile. It seems like the young master is more mischievous than the master. He likes to cause trouble in the stomach. Steele shook her head. It doesn't have to be a boy. Actually, I prefer a daughter. But a daughter can't inherit the family business. Not only does the master have a title, he also has the new flyer business. Could it be that Madame doesn't want a son to inherit it? Liz said. Steele looked at Liz with a frown. She wanted to refute her words, but she knew that Liz was right. Although there were quite a few women inheriting the family business in the signs, and there was even a queen, in terms of tradition, it was more popular for a boy to inherit the family business. Otherwise, His Highness Eric wouldn't have more support than Her Highness Seveni among the nobles of the Lampari Kingdom who cared about tradition. It's alright, Sue always said that he likes girls. Even if it's a girl, he will definitely be very happy. Steele rubbed her stomach as she comforted herself. Perhaps it was because of her mother's touch. The child in her stomach began to cause trouble again, causing Steele to deeply knit her brows. This little fellow. There are still 2 months, he can't wait to come out? Steele couldn't help smiling. After thinking about it, she stood up. Forget it, Liz, let's go take a walk and let him calm down. All right, let the young master take a walk. Liz smiled as she supported Steele and walked out the door. After Sue left, the Starfall Manor was much quieter than usual without its owner. After Linda was sent away by Steele, the manor became even quieter. Now that it was late at night, there were only 4 people in the manor, including Vivian and Teresa. Naturally, it was very quiet. However, Steele liked this kind of quiet environment, and she didn't like the presence of outsiders, so she had always disagreed with Su Yi's idea of hiring other servants. Glancing at Liz, Steele thought that although Liz was a female slave brought back by Sui from the Principality of Constantine, Sui had never treated her and Linda as slaves. Instead, he treated them as family like Vivian. Now that everyone had been together for a long time, Steele was also used to their existence and also treated them as family. Thinking of Linda, Steele suddenly asked Liz, "Liz, this time I sent Linda but left you behind. Do you hate me in your heart?" Liz originally had a smile on her face, but after hearing Steele's question, she was shocked. She shook her head and said, "Madam, why would I hate you? Please don't misunderstand, I definitely don't. Really?" Seeing Liz's anxious look, Steele smiled and patted her hand that was supporting her. She comforted her, "Don't be nervous, I didn't mean that. I just wanted to ask you, are you dissatisfied that you didn't go with Linda to serve Sui? Tell me the truth." Seeing Steele's serious expression, Liz hesitated for a moment and nodded. "Yes, I envy Linda. She can always serve Master and stay by his side." "Ah, no, madam, I don't have a problem with serving you, I also like to stay by your side. It's okay, you two like to serve Sui, that's what you should do. After all, he's your master." Steele smiled. Actually, I'm envious of Linda. The main reason is, Master has been alone outside these days. He's lonely at night, so Linda can accompany him." Liz's pretty face blushed slightly as she lowered her head and whispered. Steele smiled. "You don't have to be so envious. I don't know if Sui, that blockhead, can understand Linda's feelings and accept her." Hearing this, Liz couldn't help but raise her head and smile bitterly to Steele. "Madam, to tell you the truth, please don't be angry." "Tell me, what's there to be angry about?" Liz paused and said, "Actually, there are many times that I find it very strange. Master is really slow in this aspect. How did you get together with him? Of course, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, but I feel that Master doesn't seem to care about these things." "You're right." Steele nodded. "Sui, that blockhead, is really slow in this aspect. The reason I was able to be with him was probably because the two of us had interacted a lot in the past, so I got to know him before anyone else. If it's a fair competition now, Evita might have a higher chance." "Director Evita." Liz frowned as she thought about it. "Madam, since you're worried about Director Evita, why don't you let Master interact with her less? For this kind of thing, the more you try to restrict it, the more likely it will have the opposite effect. And Sui and Evita always discuss normal work together. How can I restrict them?" Steele shook her head. "Sui definitely doesn't like my stingy methods. I think the reason he liked me back then was because of my personality. So I have to remind myself to not become something he hates." Liz sighed. "Madam, it seems like you really love Master. You actually care about what he thinks." "You say it like you don't care." Steele pinched Liz's face and felt the smoothness of her fingers. Thinking that Liz and Linda were actually 2 or 3 years younger than her, she couldn't help but sigh. "Although I think I'm not bad looking, people will grow old in the end. Sui said before that he cares about a person's personality the most and not their appearance. So I hope to be able to move him with this. As for appearance, I'll leave it to you and Linda to satisfy him." Liz's face blushed again and she couldn't help but frown. "But Master doesn't care about our appearance and our bodies." Steele smiled. "Don't worry, no matter how blockhead he is, he's still a normal man, isn't he? The child in my belly is the most obvious proof, isn't it? Linda has been with him the entire time, and I think he won't be able to hold it in. When he comes back with Linda, I'll find a chance for him to be alone with you. As for whether you can grab that chance or not, it'll be up to you." Liz's face was filled with joy. "Really? Thank you so much, madam." Seeing the joy on Liz's face, Steele lightly shook her head. Although Steele appeared to be very generous on the surface, as a woman, how could she not care about her husband being with another woman? However, Steele knew that with Suyi's current status, he would face endless temptations. No matter how strong his self-control was, No matter how strong his will was, there would be a day when he couldn't hold on. Rather than that, it was better to let go of these thoughts. At the very least, if Liz and Linda were together with Sue, Steele wouldn't find it hard to accept. The two chatted about what was going on between Sue and Linda as they strolled around the manor. After walking for about 10 minutes, they had already walked more than half of the Starfall Manor and came to the vicinity of Sue's study. Seeing the door of the study, Steele remembered that no matter how busy Sue was, he would return to the Starfall Manor at night and work in this study for a period of time. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. After thinking for a bit, she signaled Liz to open the door of the study and walked in. The magic lamp illuminated the study. Steele looked around and sat down behind the desk in the middle of the study. Thinking of how Sue would sit on this chair and work at night, Steele couldn't help but have a strong longing for Sue. She couldn't help but lie on the desk, trying to feel the warmth of Sue at home from the desk. But just as she climbed onto the desk, Steele frowned and a trace of surprise flashed across her face. "Madam, what's wrong?" Liz hurriedly asked when she saw the strange look on Steele's face. Steele waved her hand and moved her arm away. She actually put her face on the desk and even moved back and forth for a distance. Seeing Steele's actions, Liz was puzzled. But she knew very well that her madam would never do such a senseless thing, so there must be a reason. Steele put her face on the desk and seemed to be deep in thought, thinking about something. After a while, Steele raised her head and carefully observed the desk. She flipped through the documents and books on the desk and bent down with difficulty to observe the environment under the desk. At the same time, she opened the drawer of the desk and carefully checked it. Liz was a bit puzzled. Steele's series of actions made it seem as if a thief had entered the study. But even though the Starfall Manor didn't seem to have any guards and the security was lax, the owner of the manor, Sue, and the mistress of the manor, Steele, were both extremely skilled mages. In addition, Steele's grandfather was a powerful archmage. Therefore, there were many complicated magic arrays and traps set up around the Starfall Manor. It was impossible for a thief to easily break in. After checking the environment around the desk, Steele went to the bookcase on the other side of the study. Her gaze swept across and fell on a compartment in the middle of the bookcase. Steele didn't open this compartment. Instead, she pressed a finger on it and moved the magic in her body towards the bookcase. A moment later, a light blue light lit up on the compartment. At first, this light blue light was very stable, like a small lamp on the compartment. But after Steele continued to inject magic for a while, this light blue light gradually became unstable. Finally, it flickered continuously for a while and suddenly disappeared. Steele opened the compartment and looked at the small magic array connected to the compartment of the compartment. Her pretty face became gloomy. All the discoveries proved one thing. Someone had secretly broken into the study. But this person, who could it be? Chapter 462. The north of the kingdom in December was naturally much colder than Banta City in the south. Especially when there was a cool breeze blowing by the riverside, it made people feel a chill that penetrated their hearts. Even if Sue was already prepared and had put on thick warm clothes, he still couldn't resist the cold outside. He had to use a bit of magic to create a small fire-attributed magic array under his and Samo Count's feet, keeping the temperature around them at an acceptable level. Feeling the temperature around them quickly rise, Samo Count looked at the red glowing magic array under Suyi's feet in surprise. Even if Samo Count wasn't a magician, he could see that one had to have a very high level of magic to maintain this kind of magic array. Sue, after not seeing you for a year, your magic power seems to have increased by quite a bit. You should have participated in the Sorcerers Guild's certification exam in Anvilmar City before coming here, right? How is it? What grade magician are you now? Sue revealed a faint smile. I just passed the 8th grade magician exam. I can't be considered that strong. The 8th grade magician isn't strong enough? Samo Count couldn't help shaking his head. Then what kind of magician do you think is considered strong? For me personally, I feel that no matter how strong a magician is, they can't be considered strong because they are only a single person. Sui said. Compared to a single person's strength, I always think that using industrial production to increase the overall strength is stronger. Samo Count couldn't help laughing. You really are a merchant and not a magician. You have this idea because you haven't seen how strong a truly strong magician is. If you had seen the power of an archmagus or a grand magus, I think that your ideas would definitely change. Lord City Lord, you've seen the power of an archmagus and a grand magus? Sui asked in a curious voice. Samo Count looked to the east with a bit of a sigh. Back then, I had personally witnessed a battle between the Kanla Empire and the Mala Empire. There were 4 magisters participating in the battle. In that battle, as long as an archmage made a move, it would trigger a forbidden spell powerful enough to destroy heaven and earth. It could even change the color of the sky and cause the ground to shake. Even if they were facing thousands of soldiers, these powerful archmages could do it with a wave of their hands. Now that I think about the situation back then, I still feel fear in my heart. Are magi that strong? Sui thought about the situation described by Samo Count. If a magus could kill thousands of soldiers with a wave of his hand, then it was no wonder that he was worshipped by all the countries and people of the Thane continent. Then what about the Grand Magus? Isn't that ridiculously powerful? I don't have the luck to see a Grand Magus in action. Moreover, it has been many years since a Grand Magus has appeared in the signs. The Samoyed Count shook his head. But from the legends, the strength of a Grand Magus is several times stronger than a Grand Magus. It is said that a Grand Magus can even raise a city to the ground with a single move. Sui looked back at Seoul City in the distance. He thought that Seoul City could be considered one of the largest cities in the north of the Lampari Kingdom. But compared to the real cities on Earth, it was countless times smaller. It was only less than 10 square kilometers. And the most terrifying weapon on Earth was the nuclear bomb. Could even destroy a large city on Earth with a single shot. In comparison, although a Grand Magus was powerful, in terms of destructive power, it was still far from a nuclear bomb. Seeing Su Yi's somewhat disapproving expression, the Samoyed Count was somewhat puzzled. Normally speaking, Su Yi was a magician with decent talent and was already an 8th grade magician. He could be considered a high-level magician in the magician circle, but why did he seem like he didn't care about magic and even looked down on it? But this wasn't a problem that the Samoyed Count cared about. Seeing that Su Yi wasn't that interested in this topic, he changed the topic to discuss business with Su Yi. Do you see the land by the river? The Samoyed Count pointed at the wide land by the river in front of them and stretched out his arm to draw a large circle. This entire place was specially set aside for your new flyer to build a production base. What do you think? Su-Yi looked over it and gave a satisfied nod. Very good. Lord City Lord, you have experience in Banta City, so the place you chose for us is very suitable, so I don't have any objections. But there is still a small problem. Oh? What problem? Look, Seoul City is this cold, so the Sera River will be completely frozen in winter. Even if the production base is placed by the river, we won't be able to use this river, so it really is a bit of a waste. There's no other way, this is the north after all, it's different from the south like Banta City, so there's no way to compare in terms of natural conditions. The Samoyed Count helplessly said. But your new flyer's production won't be affected by the weather, so there shouldn't be any problems. There's no effect in general, but there are some small details that need to be taken care of. I have to discuss this with the staff here. When Sui was about to wave his hand to call over the appraisers of the company in charge of this area, Camby came running over from the distance. Chairman, I found something strange. Take a look. Camby nodded to the Samoyed Count before giving Sui a transparent crystal that was releasing a bit of heat in this cold weather, with a blood-red color in the middle. After Sui took it, he found that the crystal was a bit soft to the touch. It was like a piece of jelly and wasn't a real crystal. Moreover, the surface was warm and it felt very comfortable in his hand. This is our specialty, the soft mud magic crystal. This one is red, so it should be a fire magic crystal. The Samoyed Count on the side looked at it and explained. This thing is actually a magic crystal? Sui looked at the red soft mud magic crystal in his hand in surprise. Using his magic, he focused on examining it and found that there were magic fluctuations coming from this crystal. Moreover, it had a strong reaction to fire magic element. However, this soft mud magic crystal had a very low amount of magic power. Not only could it not compare to the standard magic crystal that Evita had recently researched, it couldn't even compare to those common magic crystals that could be seen everywhere on the market. Yes, it's because the magic power in this thing is too weak that no one is willing to mine it. Otherwise, this thing could be seen everywhere outside Soul City. Soul City would have already become rich just by selling this. Why would they need to specially invite your new flyer over? The Samoyed Count said. Sui played with the soft mud magic crystal in his hand. After thinking for a bit, he indicated to Camby and the Samoyed Count to keep a distance from him. Then, he poured a large amount of magic power into it. Boom! A ball of intense flames soared into the sky, instantly rising several meters high and enveloping Sui's entire body. Camby and the Samoyed Count were startled. Just as they were about to shout for help, they saw the flames suddenly vanish and Sui appeared in his original position, completely unharmed. Phew! Camby let out a long sigh. Chairman, you nearly scared me to death. The Samoyed Count frowned and said, conducting magic experiments is too dangerous. You should be more careful. Sui laughed heartily. There's nothing to worry about. I'm a magus after all. How could I do something as foolish as playing with fire? But this soft mud magic crystal is really interesting. The Samoyed Count and Camby simultaneously looked at Sui's palm. They discovered that the soft mud magic crystal had already disappeared, leaving behind a dark brown powder in Sui's palm. It seemed to be the impurities left behind by the soft mud magic crystal. Sir City Lord, apart from this soft mud magic crystal that is especially sensitive to fire elemental magic, are there any other types? Sui asked. I heard from my subordinate that there are, but I'm not too clear on the specifics. The Samoyed Count shook his head. All right then. Kanbai, go and instruct them to collect some of these ooze magic crystals during their exploration. Try their best to bring back some of them of all shapes and colors. I want to bring them back for some related experiment. Seeing Camby leave, the Samoyed Count asked in a curious voice, What? You think this thing will be useful? I can't make a conclusion right now, but based on the experiment just now, I feel that this thing might be useful. Sui said with a nod. It would be great if it really is useful, the Samoyed Count said in a happy voice. This thing is all over the place, so if it has value, it would be equal to opening a rich source of income for Soul City. It would be very beneficial to the development of the city. Sui laughed. Sir City Lord, are you addicted to developing the city? You aren't satisfied in Banta City, so you came to Soul City to satisfy your cravings? The Samoyed Count didn't seem like he was joking as he said with a sigh, If you have the ability to change the lives of your citizens and let them live better lives, which city lord wouldn't be willing to do this? Sui fell silent because he thought of Basaru City's city lord Longley Count. Although they had different political stances, because he had the same idea as the Samoyed Count, the Longley Count had risked the name of a traitor to invite the new flyer to invest in Basaru City, as well as fully cooperating. What he wanted was to change the poverty situation in Basaru City, so that his people could live a better life. I've met this little Longley who took the title last year. I can see that he is a person with ideas. He is different from his father. Hearing Sui mention this matter, the Samoyed Count nodded to show his praise for the Longli Count. If he can really do this, it would be a good thing for Basaru City. But this matter, it isn't something he can do just because he wants to. It depends on how he deals with his relationship with His Highness Eric. Sui said with a bitter smile, I'm worried about this. The Samoyed Count looked at Sui. It's the same for you. If you want to cooperate with Basaru City, it's best if you talk to Her Highness. Sui nodded, naturally. Chapter 463. After the preliminary inspection of the land, an entire morning had passed. Camby and the others stayed to inspect the area while Sui and Count Samo returned to Seoul City first. Samo Count was prepared to have Sui return to the City Lord Manor to have lunch with him and discuss the construction of the production base. Who would have thought that as soon as he entered the city, he would meet the representative of the Seoul City Business Union who invited Sui to a banquet. Go, it's good to talk to your peers in the city. Seeing Count Samo leave after saying this, Sui gave a shrug. He had the representative lead the way and they arrived at the largest restaurant in Seoul City. This afternoon, the entire restaurant had been booked by the Seoul City Business Union. Almost all the merchants with a bit of status in the city were here, but the only guest they invited was Sui. Seeing this, Sui naturally knew what was going on. He politely greeted everyone and acted very humble. When the banquet was half over, the chairman of the Seoul City Business Union, who was sitting at the same table as Sui, as well as the chairman of the largest Myurda trading company in Seoul City, Lattice Sampson raised his cup to Sui and drank it all before revealing a friendly smile. Chairman Su, your new flyer is building a production base in our Seoul City. I and my peers in the city welcome you. I've already heard that the large and small companies of Banta City have cooperated with the new flyer in recent years, and everyone has developed. I wonder, after you come to our Seoul City this time, will you help the other companies in our Seoul City like the other companies in Banta City? We're finally at the main topic. Sui revealed a faint smile. He looked around and saw that the representatives of the large companies in Seoul City had looks of concern. Chairman Sampson, your words are too serious. Our Frestek Chamber of Commerce is a newcomer. There are many things we need to ask you old companies of Seoul City for, so we don't have the qualifications to mention this, right? No, in terms of magic machines, your new flyer is qualified. Even in the entire Lampari Kingdom and the entire continent, there isn't a company that can compare to your new flyer. Chairman Sampson immediately waved his hand. That's right, Chairman Su, your new flyer is the leader of the magic machine industry. As for us small chambers of commerce, we just hope to cooperate with you and get a small share of the leftovers. Another chamber of commerce's president chimed in. Right. President Sampson is right. Since you're all in Seoul City, shouldn't we help each other since we're all classmates? Yes. If everyone has a good cooperation and benefits, it would be good for everyone. Don't you think, Chairman Su? Sui smiled when he saw the representatives of the large companies chiming in. Some of these people tried to move him with emotion, some tried to reason with him. Although some of them were not so direct, the meaning behind their words was very obvious. They were threatening him. No matter what they said, they all had the same meaning. They wanted to get a share of the profits from New Flyer's magic machines. Sui was already mentally prepared for this. Even if they didn't say anything, he already had plans to get the other companies of Seoul City to participate. He had always thought that the establishment of the magic machine industry couldn't be done by the new flyer alone, so he had always supported the other companies' wishes to join the industry. I understand everyone's thoughts, so before coming to Seoul City this time, when I wrote a letter to the Lord City Lord, I said that I hoped that our Frestek Chamber of Commerce's arrival could drive the development of the magic machine industry in Seoul City, not just our Frestek Chamber of Commerce earning money. This is not what I want, Sui said with a faint smile. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. Chairman Sampson immediately asked, "That means, Chairman Su, you plan to transfer some technology to our companies so that we can enter the magic machine industry?" "Of course. Why not?" Su-yi nodded and handed over a small booklet to Chairman Sampson. "This is the magic machine-related technology that our Frestec Chamber of Commerce is willing to transfer. Chairman Sampson and our friends in Seoul City can take a look. If you're interested in one or more of the technologies, you can discuss with our company at any time." Chairman Sampson impatiently took the booklet and began reading it. The other chairmen of the other companies couldn't wait any longer. They came to Chairman Sampson's side and lowered their heads to look at the booklet in his hand. Hearing the heavy breathing of Chairman Sampson and the chairman of the other companies, the smile on Su-yi's face became even wider. Because Seoul City was close to 1,000 kilometers away from Banta City, for the Signs continent that wasn't convenient for transportation and information transmission, this distance could be considered as far as the horizon. So even if the magic machine industry in Banta City and the surrounding cities had developed quite well, Seoul City still didn't have a single trace of the magic machine industry. Even the magic machines in the city only gradually increased after Count Samo became the city lord. But even like this, it was far from being able to compare to Banta City. It couldn't even compare to the other cities in the kingdom that had some magic machine industry foundations. But no matter what, the trade associations in Seoul City were more well-informed than ordinary people, after all. They were aware of the popularity of the magic machine industry in other parts of the kingdom and knew that it was the most promising industry in the kingdom. Of course, they hoped to participate in it. If it wasn't for the fact that Su-yi was personally invited by Count Samo and had the full support of Samo Count, making these local companies not dare move, they wouldn't have just invited Su-yi to the banquet and tactfully proposed their ideas. It was unknown how many methods they would have used against Su-yi. Thinking of this, Su-yi suddenly felt that he was very lucky. When he founded New Flyer in Banta City 3 years ago, he met the enlightened city lord Samo Count Samo, allowing New Flyer to develop smoothly. Although there was a year of hard times after Count Stark became the city lord, New Flyer had a solid foundation during that time. Adding in the support of Her Highness 70, not only did they persist, they even changed Count Stark's ideas a bit. Now that he was in Seoul City and had the support of Samo Count Stark, he didn't need to consider these trivial matters and focused on how to develop. Su-yi was thinking about these problems while Chairman Sampson and the other company representatives were looking over the various items in the book. Chairman Sampson gave the book to the others to look over. After thinking about it, he asked Su-yi, "Chairman Su, is your New Flyer willing to transfer all the technology listed here?" "Yes." "Other than some specially marked projects that can only be developed together, we can transfer all the other technologies without any reservations," Su-yi said with a nod. "Chairman Sampson, do you have any questions?" Chairman Su, can we talk for a bit?" Su-yi understood and stood up with Chairman Sampson, coming to a secluded balcony outside the restaurant. Closing the door behind them, they blocked out all the sounds in the room. Although this restaurant wasn't high, standing on the balcony of the 3rd floor, being blown by the cold wind outside, it was still a bit cold. Seeing Su-yi shrink his neck back, Chairman Sampson said with an apologetic smile, "I'm sorry, Chairman Su, I don't want others to hear this question and I've troubled you. This is a small matter, don't mind it." Su-yi waved his hand. "I wonder, what is Chairman Sampson's question?" Chairman Sampson thought for a bit before saying, "Chairman Su, I seriously looked over the technology listed in the small book and found that it was all related to household magic machines, but there wasn't any other magic machine-related technology." Su-yi looked at him with a bit of surprise. He thought that Chairman Sampson had investigated New Flyer. He actually knew that the technology was all related to household magic machines. "Chairman Sampson, you're also interested in other technologies?" Chairman Sampson said with a smile, "Actually, I'm more interested in the other magic machine-related technologies of your company. For example, the steel-making technology." Sui narrowed his eyes and looked over this thin and small Chairman Sampson, who looked like a normal skinny old man. He thought that his eyes were quite sharp, actually looking at the steel industry that represented the foundation of the industry. Seeing that Sui didn't say anything, Chairman Sampson continued, "Chairman Su, I've heard that when your new flyer transfers the household magic machine technology, it costs several 100,000 gold coins, and the most expensive one doesn't surpass 500,000 gold coins?" That's right. Sui was even more certain that Chairman Sampson had investigated new flyer, otherwise he wouldn't know this clearly. Thinking of this, Sui became a bit vigilant towards Chairman Sampson. His investigation was this clear, and he even pointed out the steel-making technology. What was his goal? Chairman Sampson suddenly came closer to Sui and lowered his voice, using a voice that Sui could only hear. "Chairman Su, if you're willing to transfer the steel-making technology to our company, I'll pay you at least 1,000,000 gold coins. What do you think?" Chapter 464. 1,000,000 gold coins? Samo Count gave a heavy snort. This Sampson. Last time, I went to him to discuss the renovation of Soul City. I wanted him to take the lead in investing a portion of the money into the project, but he refused in every way possible, saying that the Myrta Trading Company didn't have the money. Now, for a piece of technology, he is willing to take out 1,000,000 gold coins. Sui said with a smile, "Sir City Lord, the renovation project isn't their own business, so of course he isn't willing to take out the money. As for the steel-making technology, in fact, I think the price of 1,000,000 gold coins is too low." "You think 1,000,000 gold coins is too low?" Samo Count looked at Sui in surprise. "Is the steel-making technology that valuable?" "Of course." Sui nodded with certainty. "Sir City Lord, you should know that our company has 2 steel mills in the Falling Rain Valley, right? Before I left, wasn't your second steel mill just under construction? Why, is it already in production?" Samo Count asked back. "Yes." Sui revealed a proud smile. "Sir City Lord, why don't you guess how much profit these 2 steel mills brought to our company last year?" Samo Count frowned and said in a deep voice, "Looking at your proud look, it should be quite a bit. If it's a year. The previous steel mill only brought in 100,000 gold coins a month. Then even if this steel mill is a bit bigger than the previous one, it should be 200,000 a month. Then in a year." After doing some calculations in his mind, Samo Count was shocked, because he suddenly realized that according to this calculation, just the 2 steel mills of New Flyer would bring in over 300,000 gold coins a month, or even close to 400,000 gold coins. And if they could maintain this kind of profit for a year, then wouldn't New Flyer earn a terrifying profit of 4 to 5 million gold coins a year just from these 2 steel mills? Samo Count was completely shocked by this number. When he was Banta City's city lord 2 years ago, although the Frestek Chamber of Commerce had developed quickly, to him, their foundation and strength couldn't compare to the old companies of Banta City. But now that he thought about it, he found that perhaps because the Frestek Chamber of Commerce had only been established for a short time, their foundation couldn't compare, but in terms of the biggest factor of a company's strength, profit, they had far surpassed all the other companies in Banta City. Just the 2 steel mills brought the Frestek Chamber of Commerce 4 to 5 million gold coins a year. Adding in the fact that the Frestek Chamber of Commerce's other magic machines were selling like hotcakes, earning a terrifying profit, didn't this mean that the Frestek Chamber of Commerce's annual profit was close to 10 million gold coins? Although the profits aren't bad, Lord City Lord, our company has many places to spend money. Sui gave a laugh and said in a vague voice, "Look, just this investment in Soul City, I've estimated that I'll need to invest 1,000,000 gold coins. Adding it all up, I think we'll need to spend close to 5 million gold coins. Samo Count looked at him and said with a cold snort, Do you think I don't understand you? With your skills, no matter how much you invest, you'll definitely earn back several times over. Sui laughed and didn't refute him. Samo Count waved his hand. All right, it's good that your new flyer can earn as much money as possible, it's good for me. I hope that you can earn more and more. But Sui, are you planning on transferring the steel-making technology to the Myrta Trading Company? Sui shook his head. No, I just said that 1 million gold coins is too little. Although Chairman Sampson has courage and foresight, he still hasn't seen how much profit the steel-making technology will bring in the future. Then what if he raises the price? Will you sell it? I still won't. Sui revealed a smile before saying with a serious look, For our new flyer, there are many technologies that can be transferred, but there are some that we definitely can't transfer. One of them is the steel-making technology. Samo Count was a bit surprised. Why? I feel that the steel-making technology is very simple, it's not as complicated and hard to study as the household magic machines. Why can you easily transfer the household magic machine technology, but you're not willing to transfer the steel-making technology? Because steel is the foundation of all industries and steel-making is the most important core of the magic machine industry. If this part is transferred, our new flyer will lose its biggest advantage. Sui said. Moreover, I'm not assured transferring this technology to other companies. Materials are too important to the magic machine industry, especially steel. There are too many uses, and if there's a bit of carelessness, it will cause a serious blow to the magic machine industry. I definitely won't allow this to happen. Seeing the serious look on Sui's face, Count gave a slight nod. Since that's what you think, then let's do it according to what you think. The magic machine industry was created by you, so other than you, no one else is qualified. Many thanks for the Lord City Lord's approval. Sui said with a faint smile. But Lord City Lord, I'm not planning on transferring the steel-making technology, but I'm planning on building a steel mill here. I was prepared to invest in it before, but now that I've heard Chairman Sampson's desire to buy the steel-making technology, I have a better idea that should be very helpful to you. Samo Count was instantly interested. Oh? Let's hear it? Sui laughed, looking like an old fox trying to entice a little hen. Lord City Lord, are you planning on investing in this steel mill? Hashtag. After ending the discussion with Samo Count, Sui decided to go back to his room and rest for a while. He had stayed up too late last night and woke up too early in the morning. As a result, he felt a little lethargic today. Previously, when he had to deal with so many official matters, he could still force himself to stay awake. Now that there was nothing else to deal with, he naturally felt sleepy. However, as soon as he walked into the small courtyard, he saw Linda washing the clothes that he had changed out of yesterday. Seeing Linda's slightly knit brows and the pained look on her face, as well as her awkward posture on the ground, Sui immediately walked over and grabbed her hand that was about to reach into the basin. He roared in a low voice, Are you crazy? Why aren't you resting? What are you doing? Putting his hand in the basin, Sui tightly knit his brows. The water is so cold. Don't you want your body anymore? Sui unceremoniously pulled Linda into the room. He took a towel and wiped off the water droplets on her hands and body. You just cough. Your body is weak. How can you do this kind of work? You don't care about your body. It's just washing clothes. Just leave it to the servants in the city lord's mansion. Looking at Sui carefully wiping her hands and the concerned expression on his face, Linda's eyes suddenly became misty. Her heart moved and she couldn't help but tightly hug Sui. Master, I finally know why the madam likes you so much. You really are the best man in the world. I can give myself to you. This is the best decision I've made in my life. Sui suddenly laughed. Okay, don't just be moved. Rest well. You just, That, you have to take care of yourself. I'll go find the city lord in a bit and have him send a few servants over. You don't have to work for a few days. But I just like washing clothes for master, Linda said softly. We'll talk about it in a few days. Sue snappily said. All right, you lie down first. I'll go find the city lord. No need. If you want to use servants, I can lend you two. Suddenly, a clear and beautiful voice with a hint of flirtatiousness sounded from behind him. Sue turned around and found that Princess Caroline was wearing a tight fur coat today. Although it tightly wrapped around her body, it still completely revealed her graceful curve. It made people unable to stop themselves from wanting to see through the snow white that came out of her collar. But compared to yesterday's smiling face, Princess Caroline had a bitter look on her face. She was slightly pouting as she stared at Sue, as if Sue had done something wrong to her. Sue looked at her with a bit of confusion before looking at the two personal maids that came from the Drake duchy behind her. He shook his head. I appreciate your good intentions, but I can't accept your good intentions. What I need right now are servants to do some household chores for me. I'm afraid it's not convenient for your maids. Princess Caroline looked at Sue and swept her eyes over him before giving a soft snort. What? What's not convenient about it? Could it be that Chairman Sue is worried that you won't be able to hold back and will do something to my maids? Of course, even if you really want to do something, I won't have any objections. As for my two maids, I'm sure they'll be quite willing to do so. Just like this female slave of yours. Sue was a bit stunned. Seeing Princess Caroline point at Linda with a slender finger, he immediately understood. Princess Caroline must know what had happened between him and Linda last night. Thinking of this, Sue's face turned red. He gave a cough and waved his hand as he awkwardly said, What nonsense are you saying? How could I do anything to your maids? I just feel that they are your servants, so it's not convenient to use them. I'll go talk to Sir City Lord about this. Princess Caroline slowly shook her head and said with a soft sigh, Chairman Sue, do you really need to be so polite with me? She looked at Sue again before waving her hand. The two maids behind her retreated to the door. Let's not talk about this. Chairman Sue, I came to find you this time because I have something important to discuss. Seeing her serious expression, Sue thought for a bit before saying to Linda, All right, you should go and rest. Linda bowed to Princess Caroline and retreated to the inner room. After Linda also left, Princess Caroline suddenly walked over to Sue. She stared at him with a smile that wasn't a smile and her eyes were filled with resentment. Chapter 465. Seveni put down the quill in her hand and pinched the bridge of her nose. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened her eyes again, she looked around. After confirming that there was no one else in the city lord's office, she spread her arms and stretched out. Because of the comfort from stretching her body, Seveni felt a bit better, but she couldn't help sticking out her tongue and revealing an embarrassed smile. She had been strictly educated in the royal family since she was young, so she had to maintain a perfect image in front of others. Even stretching that normal people could do, she could only do it secretly when there was no one around. Even so, it still made her feel as if she had done something bad, and she felt a little apologetic. But there was no other way, she was just too tired. It was already the end of the year, and as the city lord, there were many things that Seveni had to do personally. With all kinds of things added together, she hadn't had a good night's sleep for close to a week, so she was feeling incomparably tired. But this was her first year as the city lord, and she had her royal father's expectations for her, so naturally she couldn't relax at all. For her, the best consolation was that during these days of work, through the various reports, she had personally seen the shocking and delightful changes in Banta City. According to Banta City's annual financial report, up to this point, Banta City's total tax revenue was over 5,730,000 gold coins. Because this year wasn't over yet, if the tax revenue of the last month was included, Banta City's total tax revenue for this year would definitely be over 6 million gold coins. Moreover, if it wasn't for Count Stark's agricultural promotion policy in the first half of this year, causing Banta City's tax revenue to drop in the first half of the year. According to the trend of the second half of the year, Banta City's tax revenue for this year might even break 10 million gold coins. Thinking of this number, Seveni felt like there was a large amount of golden light in front of her eyes, making her almost unable to believe this fact. It had to be known, the entire Lampari Kingdom's tax revenue last year was only 2 million gold coins. But now in just a single city like Banta City, there was a possibility that the taxes collected would exceed 10 million gold coins. Although according to the rules of the royal parliament, each city only paid a small portion of their taxes to the kingdom's treasury, if each city in the Lampari Kingdom could be like Banta City, earning over 10 million in taxes each year, the Lampari Kingdom's finances would become completely different. If the annual revenue of the Lampari Kingdom could exceed 10 million gold coins instead of the pitiful 1 or 2 million in the past, then the Lampari Kingdom's national strength would definitely increase greatly. After all, whether it was an individual or a country, having money was a very important thing. Of course, although Banta City had a high tax income, they also spent quite a bit of money. Since Seveni took over as the city lord, the Banta City renovation project Count Stark had started again. In just half a year, the entire Banta City had become a giant construction site, with roads, buildings, and all kinds of new facilities being built all over. The renovation of the city cost a lot of money. In just half a year, they had invested over 1.5 million gold coins. According to estimates, in the next 2 to 3 years, they would need to invest at least 4 million gold coins to complete the initial stages. Because Banta City's finances had been improved, there were many things that they didn't have the money to implement before or that they didn't even think about, but after Su Yi's suggestion, the various welfare policies for the citizens of Banta City were implemented. These welfare policies naturally cost a lot of money, but Seveni insisted on implementing them. So even if Banta City's tax revenue was high, at the end of the year, after paying the taxes to the kingdom's treasury, Banta City would only be able to keep 1,200,000 gold coins. Seeing that it was almost the new year, even if Seveni wasn't willing, she had to spend some money on social activities. When it came to next year, Seveni might not even have 500,000 gold coins left. Thinking of this, Seveni shook her head with a bitter smile. This really is the problem of not having money, and the problem of having money after having money. Looking over the tax report, Seveni thought about it before closing it. She turned to look out the window and found that it was already noon. Today was a rare good day in winter and the sun was shining brightly, lighting up the outside. After hesitating a bit, Seveni stood up to change into casual clothes in the lounge of the office and decided to go out for a walk. As soon as the office door was pushed open, several of the city lord's mansion's assistant officers were all stunned. Seeing Seveni in her casual clothes, the officers looked at each other, but they just smiled and didn't say anything. Her Highness had been in the office for the past few days, so she was indeed tired. She should go out for a walk. Seveni nodded at them with a faint smile. She took a scarf and wrapped it around her neck and the lower half of her face before walking out of the city lord's manor's back door. She could already hear the noise outside the city lord's manor, and when she came out onto the street, there were even more people moving around, making it very lively. The current resident population of Banta City was already over 300,000. Adding in the floating population that wasn't counted, there were over 400,000 people in and out of the city. This number was a very terrifying number for the Lampuri Kingdom because even the most prosperous and most populous capital city, Anvilmar, only had a population of 200,000. Of course, having this many people meant that this place had corresponding prosperity. The current Banta City was filled with people whether it was large streets or small alleys. As long as it was a street, it would be transformed into all kinds of stores. Looking at it, there were all kinds of dazzling products, dazzling people's eyes. Among these shops, there were many luxuries that most Banta City citizens couldn't touch that cost several dozen gold coins or even over 100 gold coins for a single item. But although these luxuries were expensive, their sales in Banta City were very good. Because according to the City Lord's Manor statistics, the average annual income of Banta City's citizens was over 300 gold coins. With several people in a family added together, their annual income was over 1,000 gold coins. With this good income as a foundation, the luxuries that could only be bought by large nobles and merchants for a single item had become normal items that many families in Banta City could touch. Seveni looked around the street and found that many young girls were wearing clothes and accessories that weren't worse than those in Anvilmar City. Although many girls were limited by their tastes and their clothes and accessories weren't that good in Seveni's eyes, this meant that they had considerable economic power. As the city lord of Banta City, Seveni was naturally very happy to see this. After strolling along the street, Seveni stopped at a sign that said City Lord's Manor and patiently waited for the next public transport magic car. "Hey, Ronnie, you're also waiting for a bus?" A fat middle-aged man walked past Seveni and greeted a thin man around the same age, standing to her right. The thin man revealed a smile. "That's right, I'm going to the Falling Rain Valley. What about you, Shaq?" The middle-aged man called Shaq laughed. "I'm not going that far, I'm just going to the hospital outside the city." "What? Are you sick?" the thin man Ronnie asked in a surprised voice. "How could that be? Look at me, how could I be sick?" "Then why did you go to the hospital?" Ronnie wondered. Ronnie was a bit confused. "You still don't know?" The Banta Times reported a while ago that the City Lord's Manor is implementing a health care system for Banta City's citizens. As long as one is a registered citizen of Banta City, each person only needs to pay 5 gold coins a year to enjoy this health care system. Yesterday's Banta Times said that this system has been implemented and I need to go to the hospital outside the city to take care of the procedures, so I took some time to prepare to go. Medical security system? Ronnie frowned. Ronnie knit his brows. What is this thing for? We still have to pay? What? You're afraid of losing out? Let me tell you, this thing is very good. As long as you pay 5 gold coins this year, you can enjoy a discount for the entire year next year. For example, if you have an illness and you spend 10 gold coins at the hospital with this healthcare system, it can give you a 70% discount, so you only need to spend 3 gold coins. How about it? Isn't it worth it? Really? Ronnie was pleasantly surprised. Ronnie was surprised. There's actually such a good thing? What if I don't get sick for a year? If you don't get sick, of course it's a waste, you still want to return it. A waste. The joy on Ronnie's face faded and he said with a bit of heartache, "Then, if you don't get sick for a year next year, wouldn't you have lost 5 gold coins for nothing?" "I say, you're still worried about this?" Shaq curled his lips. "Isn't it just 5 gold coins? Could it be that you're lacking in money right now? You can enjoy such a high discount if you pay it, but if you really need it, if you don't pay it, that would be a big loss." "That's true." Ronnie nodded. "Let me consider it." "Right, there's a time limit for applying for this thing, right? When is it?" "It's at the end of the year, so hurry up if you want to consider it, don't miss it," Shaq warned. "All right, I'll properly consider it." Chapter 466. Seveni listened to their conversation with a faint smile on the side, and her heart was filled with relief. Although the thin man named Ronnie was still pained by the 5 gold coins a year he had to pay to join the medical insurance system, with Shaq's persuasion, he was truly moved. He began seriously considering how to implement the medical insurance system for his family. If it wasn't for the fact that she wanted to keep hiding her identity, Seveni would have personally explained to him what Sue E had proposed. Seveny had seriously considered this welfare system that she had decided to implement first. According to Seveny's idea, she didn't plan on letting the citizens of Banta City pay 5 gold coins a year and all the costs would be paid by Banta City. But Sui had stopped Seveny from doing this. Perhaps in the early stages, the citizens of Banta City were used to it, so they wouldn't consider seeking help from a doctor when they were sick. But once the medical guarantee system was introduced and the citizens found that the cost of seeing a doctor wasn't high, most of the citizens would choose to use this system. If it became like this, no matter how good Banta City's finances were, they wouldn't be able to pay for this large expenditure. Even if they followed Su Yi's suggestion and set the standard of 5 gold coins a year for each person, according to the City Lord Manor's estimates, just the hospital that the City Lord Manor had built last month would cost close to 200,000 gold coins a year. In order to ensure the standard of this Banta City Citizen Hospital, Seveny had personally come out and invited several highly skilled doctors from Anvilmar City. Of course, the salaries given to these doctors were very good, with the lowest being over 1,000 gold coins a year. This money was naturally included in the hospital's costs, which was a part of Banta City's finances. Shaq and Ronnie discussed for a bit before the next public transport magic car arrived. The two stopped discussing and got in the magic car with Seveny following behind them. This public transport magic car set off from Banta City and headed to the Falling Rain Valley. If one took the entire trip, the Furson carriage would charge 30 silver coins, but Seveny announced that she would subsidize the Banta City public transport system, reducing the cost to 25 silver coins. Although it was only a difference of 5 silver coins, once the City Lord Manor implemented this policy, it immediately received praise from everyone in Banta City. Even if she had only been City Lord for less than half a year, Seveny already had a high prestige in Banta City. She was called the respected, loved, great, and beautiful Lord City Lord by the Banta Times. There were even some Banta City citizens who secretly called Seveny the Banta Goddess after Steel. But it was different from Still, who had obtained this title based on her beauty and fame. Seveny's title was based on the gratitude and love the citizens of Banta City had for her. After getting in the car, Ronnie and Shaq continued to talk about the medical security system. As they talked, the topic turned to the mayor's mansion, who had enacted this policy. Naturally, they began to praise Steele. Hearing the praise that came from their mouths, although it was the truth, it still made Seveny's face turn a bit red, and she lowered her head in embarrassment. If someone recognized her as the Lord City Lord in the car, that scene would be very awkward. After the car drove for a while, there were some more people who came from the other stop. Some passengers heard Ronnie and Shaq's discussion, and they couldn't help joining in. The group of people began to enthusiastically discuss the various policies of the City Lord Manor. Among them, most of them were praising these policies, but there were a few who felt it wasn't good and gave their opinions. For example, when it came to the renovation of Banta City, most people felt that it was a good policy for the citizens, but there were 2 people who said that because there was construction all over the city, it created a lot of dust and noise. Even when work was done at night, it affected their rest. For example, when it came to Seveny's policy of developing agriculture and business together after taking over as the city lord, there were several people who had different opinions. To them, Banta City was mainly focused on business. Even if there were large amounts of foreigners, they would work for the various large and small companies in the city. Of course, it was impossible for them to come all the way to Banta City to farm. Since it was like this, Lord City Lord Seveny should be bolder. She should turn Banta City into a business city and give more support to the companies in the city. As for agriculture, wasn't there the Cantona Chamber of Commerce that specialized in agriculture? She could just leave it to them. Hearing these people who were clearly small merchants that could be seen everywhere in the city talking about the Cantona Chamber of Commerce, Seveny couldn't help revealing a faint smile. When Su Yi made a bet with her, saying that the Cantona Chamber of Commerce would pay over 200,000 in taxes at the end of the year. 70 didn't believe it at all. Because the Cantona Chamber of Commerce had paid less than 50,000 in taxes, to 70, it was impossible for them to pay over 200,000 in taxes in the next 4 months. Who would have thought that when 70 saw the annual tax report of Banta City, she would find that the Cantona Chamber of Commerce had already paid over 230,000 gold coins. If they also paid the last month's tax, it would be close to 300,000 gold coins. It had to be said, the Cantona Chamber of Commerce's results had greatly exceeded 70's expectations. Because even 70 herself felt that agriculture couldn't compare to business. The Cantona Chamber of Commerce's main business was agriculture, so it was very hard for them to make large profits. The tax they paid surpassed many small companies that had been established at the same time as them. The Cantona Chamber of Commerce could pay this much tax mainly because of their new product, the green source fruit juice. This kind of fresh fruit juice was made with the special formula of the elves. Not only did it have the taste of fresh fruit juice, it could also be stored for a long time, so it was very popular as soon as it appeared. Not only were there all kinds of flavors of green source fruit juice in Banta City, the Cantona Chamber of Commerce even sold it to the various cities of the kingdom through the Walmart Chamber of Commerce. The most important thing was that with the hot sales of this fruit juice, the villagers of the 3 villages contracted by the Cantona Chamber of Commerce had a better way to deal with the fruit. This made the farmers of the 3 villages even more enthusiastic about planting fruit. Right now, because the villagers of Mexilin village and the other 3 villages were planting fruit trees, their income was much higher than the villagers of other villages outside the city. This caused many villages outside the city to apply to the city lord's mansion to plant fruits next year. If it was before, in order to guarantee basic grain production, 70 definitely wouldn't have agreed to this request. But now with the use of the fertilizer, Banta City's grain yield had greatly increased. The Cantona Chamber of Commerce contracted the farmland of the 3 villages, and only Cambia village was still planting basic grain, but the grain they harvested was much more than what the 3 villages had harvested before. Thinking of this, 70 thought of the fertilizer factory that New Flyer had set up in Sandton Manor. The fertilizer had shown a strong effect in the 2 harvests of Banta City this year. Although there were some people with ulterior motives who doubted that there would be problems with the grain grown with the fertilizer, in the 2 months after Banta City's fall harvest, the Shinfei fertilizer factory had received large amounts of orders from all over the kingdom. According to what Su Yi had told 70 before he left, the Shinfei fertilizer factory had a terrifying backlog of 4 million tons of fertilizer orders. The Shinfei fertilizer factory's current output was limited, so before next year's spring harvest, they could only produce 700,000 tons at most. Other than leaving a portion for Banta City, Su Yi gave the rest to 70 to take care of, letting her decide which order to complete first. 70 was very clear that this was a large favor that Su Yi had given her. The fertilizer was this effective in increasing grain yield, so if a city received the help of the fertilizer, they would definitely have a good harvest in the coming harvest. For the Lampari kingdom that prioritized agriculture, if a city's grain yield was satisfactory, it meant that the city lord would be praised. To put it simply, 70 controlled the distribution of the surplus fertilizer, so she decided which cities would enjoy the benefit. This was very important for her to obtain support. Su Yi clearly understood this, so he chose to give this decision to 70. Thinking of this, 70 couldn't help feeling a deep gratitude and a strange feeling towards Su Yi. If it wasn't for Su Yi's existence, Banta City wouldn't have become as prosperous as it was now, and 70 wouldn't have been able to see the hope of changing the kingdom. If possible, 70 wanted to give Su Yi and the New Flyer even more support, letting Su Yi quickly change the situation of the Lampari kingdom, making the kingdom stronger and making the citizens of the kingdom the same as the citizens of Banta City. Not only would they be able to eat and wear warm clothes, they would also have extra money to enjoy better lives. But to achieve this, 70's current status as the princess was far from enough. If she really wanted to give Sui the support he needed, 70 had to ascend to the throne that everyone in the kingdom had their eyes on. As long as she became the queen of the Lampari kingdom, she would be qualified to give Sui powerful support. To ascend to the throne, other than the support of the nobles, the support of the citizens was also essential. Hearing the approval of the people in the carriage, it was filled with gratitude and gratitude. Gratitude that came from the bottom of their hearts. 70 revealed a faint smile. She thought that if everyone in the kingdom could enjoy the rich lives of the citizens of Banta City, they would definitely support her like these people. But at this time, there was a cold snort that came from the carriage. You fellows praise Her Highness like she's a god, but in my eyes she's just bullshit. Chapter 467. The car fell into silence as everyone looked in the direction of the voice in a daze. Even the car trembled before quickly turning back to normal. It was clear that the driver in charge of driving the magic car was shocked by these words and couldn't help affecting his control of the magic car. 70 had been thinking about how to improve the suggestions of the people in the car, but after hearing these words, she was stunned. She looked to the left and found a middle-aged man who looked to be at least 50 years old looking at the people in the car with a look of provocation and ridicule. What? You can't accept it? If it was up to me, this highness doesn't have a brain at all. She only knows how to let the people under her do things. Listening to that Sui from New Flyer, she doesn't have any skills at all. This kind of person should just be a princess for her entire life. Why would she come to be the city lord and even want to be our queen? This is simply a joke. Hearing this, everyone in the car was instantly enraged. Shaq pointed at his nose without any courtesy and roared in a deep voice, "You really are bold. Is Her Highness someone you can casually talk about? What qualifications do you have?" That's right, you actually dare say that Her Highness doesn't have any skills? Do you think we're all blind? Another passenger chimed in. Another passenger also added, when Count Stark was the city lord, everyone almost lost their good lives. Now that Her Highness has been the city lord for less than half a year, do you see how much the city has changed? What kind of life is everyone living? That's right. You can't talk about anyone, but you dare talk about Chairman Su? If it wasn't for Chairman Su and the New Flyer bringing all these new things to our Banta City, how could everyone be living such good lives? Isn't that right, everyone? Right. It's because Chairman Su and the New Flyer brought Banta City that everyone can live such good lives. You can't just talk about Chairman Su and the New Flyer. Didn't you see that when Count Stark was the city lord, Chairman Su couldn't do anything? So it's Her Highness who has the most merit. Only with her as our Banta City's city lord can our Banta City develop the best. That's right. If it was up to me, I would rather Her Highness not be the queen and just be our Banta City's city lord, that way we can live such good lives. That's not right. If Her Highness can become the queen, I believe that our Lampari Kingdom's direction of Banta City. That's right. As these people spoke, they began to praise 70 again, while also fiercely praising Sui and the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. That middle-aged man kept giving a cold laugh, but he didn't taunt them again, so they didn't look for trouble with him. But with a common goal like him, everyone's discussions became louder and more focused. Perhaps he felt that it was boring to stay in the car, or perhaps he had already arrived at his destination, but when the magic car stopped at the next stop, the middle-aged man got out. 70 thought about it before getting out of the car behind him. Looking up after getting out, 70 found that there was the sandy river not far from this stop. On the bank of the river was the Dawn Villa community that the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had just built. Seeing the middle-aged man walk into the community after getting out of the car, 70 was even more confused. Based on his clothes, this middle-aged man shouldn't be a rich person. No matter how she looked at it, he shouldn't be someone who could afford to live in such a high-class community, so what was he doing here? If it was said that he was acquainted with someone living here, the people living here were all people who benefited from the development of City. That was why they could afford a villa that cost at least 8,000 gold coins, so how could they be acquainted with him? Seveni followed the middle-aged man into the community. Seeing him approach, the 2 guards at the gate noticed him and prepared to stop him. However, the middle-aged man stopped not far away from the gate. He reached into his chest and took out a roll of cloth. Shaking it, he found that there was an iron rod attached to both sides of the cloth. The middle-aged man inserted one end of the iron rod into the dirt on the side of the road and pulled the cloth to the other side before inserting the other end of the iron rod into the dirt. The white cloth was unrolled, revealing a row of large words written in blood red. The Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce is heartless, destroying my home. Her Highness Seveni has no humanity. Colluding with merchants is shameful. Seeing these large words, Seveni was stunned. It was fine if he said that the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was heartless, but why did he say that she had no humanity? As for colluding with the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce for the development of City, the City Lord Manor cooperated with all the companies in City, with the most representative being the new flyer. This person didn't bring out the new flyer, rather he brought out the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Just why was it? Seveni racked her brains for a while, but she found that because the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was involved in many areas of City's renovation project and had a wide range of cooperation with the City Lord Manor, she couldn't make any guesses at all. The 2 guards at the gate saw this, and after being stunned, they quickly walked over to the middle-aged man, looking like they wanted to ask what was going on. Who would have thought that when the 2 guards approached, the middle-aged man would suddenly reach into his chest and take out a shining dagger. The 2 guards were startled, but they immediately chuckled and continued to approach. For these 2 guards who had retired from the army, a middle-aged man who didn't seem strong just holding a dagger wasn't a threat at all. However, the middle-aged man didn't plan on using the dagger to attack them. Rather he turned his hand and pointed the dagger at his throat, loudly shouting, "You're not allowed to come over! If you come any closer, I'll stab down." The 2 guards were stunned and couldn't help stopping. This fellow using suicide to threaten them made it hard for the 2 guards. When the 2 guards and Seveni were in a daze, there was a medium-sized magic car that stopped on the road behind them. A group of people came out of the car and ran to the middle-aged man's side, surrounding him. Then they all took out daggers from their chests and pointed them at their throats, taking the same stance as the middle-aged man. Seeing that there were men and women, old and young in this group, and there were even 2 children who weren't even 10 years old, Seveni deeply knit her brows. Just what did the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce do to force these normal citizens into this kind of situation? ###, Your Highness, I've been wronged. Chairman Cruz had a tearful look as he looked at Seveni with an aggrieved look. You should be very clear about the things our Chamber of Commerce has done. When have we done anything devoid of conscience? Those fellows are just causing trouble for no reason. Seveni looked around and didn't say a thing. President Cruz immediately understood and waved his hand to signal the others in the room to leave. When there were only the 2 of them left, Chairman Cruz looked at Seveni with a nervous look as his heart filled with unease. When he received the news, he didn't care at first since this wasn't the first time the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had encountered this kind of thing. But when he rushed over, he was shocked to find that Her Highness Seveni was also here, which scared him quite a bit. Although to him, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce didn't do anything wrong, with such a large matter and such a bad influence, Her Highness Seveni would definitely be very angry. But since she saw him until now, Her Highness Seveni didn't seem angry at all, but Chairman Cruz didn't dare be careless. Speak, just what is going on? 70 looked into Chairman Cruz's eyes and calmly asked, "Why did those citizens say that your company destroyed their homes?" Chairman Cruz rubbed his hands and thought for a bit before saying, "Your Highness, the Sanglang Canal project has already been completed. You should know about this, right?" 70 nodded. "I know. What? Are they related to the Sanglang Canal project?" "These people are villagers from a village beside the Sanglang Canal. Because the canal passed by their village, it took a piece of farmland from their village. They're here to cause trouble because of these farmlands." 70 knit her beautiful brows. "Didn't I tell Chairman Porter to properly take care of the matters related to the Sanglang Canal project? Moreover, why didn't these citizens go to the Porter Chamber of Commerce for this matter, and came to cause trouble for your Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce?" Chairman Cruz said with a bitter smile, "Because the one in charge of the project was our company. Those citizens only know that our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce dug up their farmland, so they are targeting our company." "Then why did they agree to let you dig it up, and why are they causing trouble now?" 70 asked in a confused voice. Chairman Porter promised them that after digging up their farmland, he would give them some gold coins as compensation. He would also arrange for them to work for a company in Banta City, giving them a stable income. They agreed very well, so we dug it up. Who knew? After saying this, Chairman Cruz suddenly stopped. "What is it?" 70 looked at him. Chairman Cruz gave a bitter laugh and shook his head. It was hard to tell if he was angry or found it funny. "When I was negotiating with those people just now, I asked them why they came here to cause trouble again. In the end, they said that they were all fired from their previous chambers of commerce and lost their jobs. Now they have no income and can't live anymore, so they came to cause trouble." 70 was stunned. Why were they fired? Didn't Chairman Porter arrange for them to work for those companies? "I asked some people just now. Can you guess why they were fired by those chambers of commerce?" 70 shook her head. Chairman Cruz said with a strange expression, "Chairman Porter found Chairman Su for help when arranging for them, and then Chairman Su used his connections to arrange for them to work for several companies in the city that also produced magic machines. But these people didn't know any skills and weren't willing to learn, so they couldn't meet the requirements of those companies at all. So they were all fired." Seeing the strange expression on 70's face, Chairman Cruz quickly added, "Your Highness, you have to believe that if it wasn't for the fact that they weren't that good, I think that those companies wouldn't have fired them on account of Chairman Su." 70 nodded. "I understand. But this matter has reminded me of a problem." "What problem?" Chairman Cruz asked in a curious voice. "Su-yi mentioned this problem to me before. He said that the magic machine industry is developing very quickly, so there is a higher requirement for the skills of the workers. There is a higher requirement for qualified workers, so if we rely on the companies of Banta City to train them, it will be far from enough." Chairman Cruz immediately agreed with a nod. I have a deep understanding of this. Normally speaking, most of our company's work is simple physical work that doesn't require any skills. But now that there are more and more projects, we need more and more magic machines, but our company can't find enough workers to operate these magic machines, so many projects are affected. So the problem that Su-yi mentioned before is very important. How to turn people into important manpower requires large amounts of investment. 70 thought about it before saying to Chairman Cruz, "Chairman Cruz, take out some people. I'm planning to build a vocational training school outside the city." Chapter 468. When Su-yi walked into Samo Count's private office, he saw Samo Count put down the newspaper in his hand. He knit his brows and had a bit of worry in his eyes. "Did something happen?" Su-yi asked. He looked at the newspaper on the table and found that it was the Banta Times, that he was familiar with, so he couldn't help being a bit surprised. "When did the Banta Times come here?" "It didn't." Samo Count shook his head. I had people collect it every week and specially send it over from Banta City. Specially bought it? Sui was secretly speechless. Banta City was 1,000 kilometers from here. Even if they took a magic car and went on the road without stopping, it would take at least 2 days to send it over. The more important thing was that to specially send someone to buy a copy of the Banta Times, the cost was definitely shocking. Samo Count wasn't a luxurious noble, taking out this kind of money and effort just for a single Banta Times. It could be seen that even after being city lord for a year and a half, he still cared about Banta City. This isn't strange at all. Count Sean smiled. Samo said with a smile, I've been city lord for over 10 years, so I have deep feelings for that place. Not to mention, now that Her Highness is Banta City's city lord, I should care a bit more. Sui nodded to show he understood before asking, Did something happen in Banta City? Take a look. Samo Count pointed at the Banta Times on the table. Sui picked up the newspaper and found that based on the day, this Banta Times should be from 3 days ago. Seeing the headline on the first page, Sui's eyes lit up and his heart filled with joy. Ha! Her Highness is finally paying attention to this problem? That's great. With this vocational skill school and the other training organizations, Banta City's human resource problem should be solved soon. It will be of great help to Banta City and the Lampari Kingdom's future development. Sui, you were the one who came up with this idea for Her Highness, right? Samo Count asked. Well, in fact, I noticed this problem last year, but Count Stark was the city lord at that time, so I didn't mention it to him. When Her Highness took over as the city lord, I mentioned it to her, but Her Highness didn't have time to think about it, so it was delayed. Now that Your Highness is finally paying attention to this issue, that's great. Samo Count shook his head and sighed. Did you not notice why Her Highness began to pay attention to this problem? Sui was surprised. Carefully looking at the report, he found that the main article mentioned that Her Highness made this decision because of an incident that happened in Banta City a few days ago. Moreover, there was a detailed report on this issue. Opening the newspaper, as expected, on the second page, the Banta Times had a detailed report on this matter. Seeing the words Mulberry Canal and occupying farmland, Sui thought about it and remembered that there was indeed this matter. When Chairman Porter asked him for help, he didn't care about it. He just ordered Kennard to arrange it and didn't care about it. But he never thought that this matter would develop into such a serious matter. According to the description in the Banta Times, not only did this matter attract attention in Banta City, it even attracted attention in many other cities in the kingdom. There were even several newspapers in Anvilmar City that reported this. After reading the report on this matter, Sui thought about it before giving a shrug and saying with a smile, although the influence of this matter isn't good, it made Her Highness begin to pay attention to human resources. In the end, this is considered a good thing. Samo Count narrowed his eyes to look at Sui for a while before asking with knit brows, You really only have this idea? Sui was surprised. What? Samo Count shook his head and said with a sigh, It seems like you really aren't suited for politics, you actually can't see the hidden problem in this matter. Sui looked at the Banta Times in his hand with a confused look and asked in a confused voice, What problem is there? Haven't you thought about it? Seriously speaking, this is a small matter, so why did it become so big? Count Sean asked back. How could this matter be small? Sui had just spoken when he suddenly stopped. Because he suddenly found that he had overlooked a problem. This was the signs, after all, it was very different from Earth. If this matter happened on Earth, if it was reported, it would be considered a serious matter. It would definitely have a serious effect on the local government of Banta City, and it might even cause the leaders of Banta City to be held accountable. But in the signs, because the farmland that was invaded by the canal belonged to the Lampari Kingdom, the ownership didn't belong to the farmers, so they didn't have a basis to cause trouble. Moreover, for a society like the Signs that was still half slave and half feudal, even if the benefits of the normal citizens were invaded by the nobles, how could they have the courage to resist? If this matter happened in the other Signs countries, or even in most of the other cities of the Lampari kingdom, when the city lord manor needed to invade the farmland to dig the canal, they didn't need to discuss it with the farmers at all. If they wanted to dig, they would dig, and those farmers wouldn't even dare fart, not to mention resisting. They even came to cause trouble now. If they met a stronger noble city lord, it wouldn't be a problem for them to behead these farmers. This was because according to the laws of the Lampari kingdom, gathering people to cause trouble, and even threatening them with weapons could be considered a rebellion, so the city lord had the power to deal with them. Now these fellows not only had the guts to gather in Banta City, raising banners to make this matter this big, they had even caused many newspapers in the kingdom to report this matter. How could this be something normal farmers would do? If it was said that they didn't have someone supporting them, Sui wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. Thinking that there was someone supporting them, Sui immediately grabbed the newspaper and seriously read the report again. This time, he discovered some problems that he didn't notice before from these reports. For example, in the report in the Banta Times, it was mentioned that these farmers had all prepared knives, and other than the leader who set off alone, the others had all arrived in the same medium-sized magic passenger car. Not mentioning the other problems, just this medium-sized magic car was a problem. According to the new flyer's price for a medium-sized magic car, it cost 800 gold coins. These farmers had lost their jobs and no longer had a source of income. Not to mention buying one, even if they rented one, they wouldn't be able to take out this money. Seeing this, Sui couldn't help giving a cold laugh. This means that there is someone who wants to target Her Highness and use this matter to ruin Her Highness' reputation? Count Samo gave a slight nod. You're not dumb. Take a look at these. Taking the newspapers that Count Samo pushed over, Sui looked through them and found that they were all related to this matter. But it was different from the Banta Times report that focused on the aftermath of this matter. The reports in these newspapers mainly described the tragic situation of these farmers, and the reason why these farmers did this was because they were forced into a corner. It was like they were the farmers themselves. If one just looked at the reports in these newspapers, they would have deep sympathy for these farmers and deep hatred for the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Although these newspapers didn't directly criticize Her Highness 70, the meaning between the lines revealed that the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce did this because of the decision of the Banta City Lord Manor. Naturally, the people who read the reports were dissatisfied with the Banta City Lord Manor and Her Highness 70. These fellows really are bold, daring to make a move against Her Highness. After reading this, Sui didn't get angry, rather he revealed a smile. Since they have the guts to report this, why don't they just say that Her Highness doesn't care about people's lives? Of course they wouldn't dare. Count Shan shook his head. Sui shook his head, publicly slandering Her Highness. This will be treated as a rebellion. But it's enough to affect Her Highness' reputation. They aren't planning on toppling Her Highness because they know that this is impossible. Sui knit his brows, and after thinking for a bit, he said with a serious look, Lord City Lord, we must fight back. It isn't good for Her Highness to make a move, so we must help her. You think that Her Highness is an idiot in politics like you? Samo Count said with a laugh. Relax, Her Highness has already seen through the hidden problems in this matter, so she has already taken care of it. After saying this, Samo Count revealed a happy smile as he said with a look of praise, speaking of this, although Her Highness is young, she comes from the royal palace, so her ability in this aspect is not something a fellow like you can compare to. This matter should have affected her reputation, but with how she has taken care of it, she has used this chance to show her foresight in politics and also helped you out. How did Her Highness take care of it? Sui couldn't help asking in a curious voice. Can't you see for yourself? Samo Count pointed at the Banta Times in Suyi's hand. Sue doubtfully opened the last few pages of the Banta Times and found a large title. On the importance of the magic machine industry to economic development. There was a subtitle under it. Promoting the development of human resources, increasing the competitiveness of the population. At the end, it was signed Seveni Lampuri. Seeing this title, Sue's expression became very strange. This Highness Seveni, when did she steal the skill of writing papers from him? Chapter 469. There was only a small part of Her Highness' thesis in the Banta Times, but the full text was placed in front of Lampuri 13th. It was made up of 37 pages, and it looked quite thick when stacked together. Lampuri 13th spent an entire 3 hours to finish reading the 30,000-word text and the several tables. He was very serious during this time and didn't even take a sip of water. After he finished, he closed his eyes to rest for a while before letting out a sigh and revealing a strangely happy smile. Of his 3 children, the one he was most satisfied with was his youngest daughter Seveni. She had shown superior intelligence and self-control since she was young. Not only was she serious in her studies, her comprehension was also very strong. She had a certain understanding of politics since she was young. When she was a bit older, she could already express her opinions on politics, and these opinions were very pertinent. There were even some opinions that Lampuri 13th praised. When she was over 20 and began participating in politics, she showed that she was much more capable than her 2 big brothers. She could handle everything properly and helped Lampuri 13th solve quite a few problems. On the contrary, although her 2 big brothers couldn't be considered idiots, they were much worse than Seveni in terms of self-control since they were young. They weren't serious in their studies, and after they grew up, their abilities were far from Seveni's, so Lampuri 13th couldn't be assured. If Seveni wasn't a girl and if she was the eldest daughter instead of the youngest daughter, Lampuri 13th would have made her the only successor to the throne a long time ago. But Seveni was the youngest daughter, and because of this, Lampuri 13th's idea of making her the successor to the throne was hindered. It was very hard to keep her status as the princess. If it wasn't for Lampuri 13th showing a rare display of strength, the kingdom's parliament would have rejected her as the princess. Now that he saw Seveni's detailed report on the magic machine industry, Lampuri 13th was certain of his thoughts. If he had to choose someone to take the throne, the most suitable person would be Seveni. In this report, Seveni had given a detailed analysis of the effects of the magic machine industry on Banta City after it appeared. With the incomparably detailed data and tables in the report, her report was very clear. One could see the changes that happened in Banta City after the magic machine industry appeared. Actually, other than Banta City, there were many other cities in the Lampari Kingdom that were affected by the magic machine industry brought by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce, but Seveni didn't have the detailed data of those cities, so she only mentioned them in the report and didn't focus on them. Lampuri 13th appreciated Seveni's practical approach very much because he was clear that although there were many things in government that needed to be vague, there couldn't be any ambiguity in places that shouldn't be vague at all. Through this report, it was clear that the current Banta City was completely different from 4 years ago when the new flyer hadn't appeared yet. The most direct data was that Banta City's tax revenue this year had already broken through 6 million gold coins. Compared to the tax revenue of less than 500,000 4 years ago, it had already increased by over 10 times. Other than this, Banta City's grain yield had also increased by a large amount. With the dual effects of the fertilizer and the agricultural magic machines, Banta City's wheat yield had broken a shocking 1 million tons. It could be said that just with the wheat yield of Banta City, it was enough to feed a fifth of the Lampari Kingdom. According to Seveni's previous report, when the new flyer's fertilizer factory's output increased and the fertilizer could be used in every field of the kingdom, the Lampari Kingdom wouldn't need to worry about food anymore. If they could really do this, It would be equal to solving the biggest problem that had plagued the Lampari kingdom for several hundred years. Even if they ignored the other contributions of the new flyer, just based on the agricultural magic machines and the fertilizer it produced, Lampuri 13th felt that it wasn't excessive to give them any reward. If it wasn't for the fact that Su-yi was still too young and had only been a noble for a short time, Lampuri 13th would have definitely given him another title. Other than the most important tax revenue and grain yield, there was another clear change in Banta City, which was the large increase in population. Other than the less than 100,000 people in Banta City, there were over 300,000 people that came from other cities of the kingdom. Banta City was now the most populous city in the south of the Lampari kingdom. Adding in the fact that Banta City's economy was developed and the market was prosperous, the current Banta City had become the economic center of the kingdom's south. According to the table in the report, there were over 5,000 transport horse carriages that left Banta City each day. And in the transport fleet, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's transport magic cars became more and more popular, even surpassing the traditional transport horse carriages. Adding in the fact that after the Sanglang Canal was opened, it was very convenient for Banta City to enter the Northern Waterway, so the shipping industry in Banta City quickly developed. But in this report, Seveni had mentioned that the new flyer was currently developing the magic boat. When the magic boat was developed, Banta City's shipping industry would definitely become much more prosperous. Seeing that the new flyer was developing the magic boat, Lampuri 13th suddenly thought of the base that the new flyer had invested in the Principality of Constantine, where they were building a pier by the sea. Could it be that Su-yi had already thought of developing the magic boat at that time and had the idea of using the magic boat to open up the sea? If it really was like this, Lampuri 13th would have to re-evaluate Su-yi. This fellow, he was more far-sighted than he thought. While he was thinking about the influence of Su-yi and the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce, Dima came in from outside. "Your Majesty, Viscount Leslie is here to see you." Lampuri 13th put down the report, let him in. After a while, Viscount Leslie was led by Dima into the reception room that Lampuri 13th had specially prepared for this meeting. After Viscount Leslie gave his bow, Lampuri 13th looked over him before nodding and praising with a faint smile. "Not bad, after training in the Northern Army, you really are much more pleasing to the eye compared to before." Viscount Leslie revealed a faint smile. "I think that your Majesty's pleasing to the eye isn't the same as the pleasing to the eyes of the noble ladies of Anvilmar City, right?" Lampuri 13th broke out in laughter. Viscount Leslie came from the Stag family, so he had been close to the royal family since he was young. Viscount Leslie had played with the two princes and Her Highness Seveni since he was young, so he was very familiar with Lampuri 13th. Naturally, he wasn't as reserved as the others in front of Lampuri 13th. "Actually, although your skin is a bit rough now, perhaps those young misses and madams like rougher men. With your white and tender appearance before, you might not have been as popular as now." Lampuri 13th teased. Lampuri 13th teased, "So having you serve in the Northern Army is actually a profit for you." Viscount Leslie couldn't help breaking out in laughter. He had already heard that Lampuri 13th was unruly when he was young, but now he could see some clues. "If we're talking about profit, I do feel that I've profited, but it's not in terms of my image. Rather, through this military service, I've come into contact with many different people and have met many different things," Viscount Leslie said. "Different things." Lampuri 13th took a deep look at Viscount Leslie before waving his hand to Dima. Dima immediately bowed and left. "Come, tell me, what different things have you encountered that a kid like you can't forget?" Viscount Leslie thought about it before saying, "Your Majesty, I think that what left the deepest impression on me should be the attack on the Sac Kingdom at the beginning of the year. I think that you won't forget it." "Of course." Lampuri 13th nodded, That was our Lampuri kingdom's first attack on the Sac kingdom in all these years, and it was a glorious victory, even taking back control of the Muerto Mountains. This is the greatest victory since our kingdom was founded. How could I forget it? Yes, this victory was very exciting. When I was in the Northern Army, I could feel that the morale of the entire Northern Army was high. Everyone was filled with enthusiasm, wishing that they could take this chance to attack the Sac kingdom. Viscount Leslie revealed an emotional look as he reminisced. Attacking the Sac kingdom is just thinking too much. We don't have that strength right now. Lampuri 13th shook his head. I understand. But Your Majesty, why do you think the Northern Army suddenly had the ability to attack the Sac kingdom and take back the Muerto Mountains from them? Lampuri 13th narrowed his eyes. What do you want to say? Just say it directly. There are only the two of us here, so I won't hold you responsible and will give you a chance to speak. All right. Viscount Leslie nodded with a serious expression. Your Majesty, I think that you should know better than me that the Northern Army suddenly had such a strong battle strength at the beginning of the year was completely because the Northern Army's equipment had been greatly improved. Whether it is the weapons they have, the magic repeating crossbows, or the magic trebuchets that had the greatest effect when attacking the front lines, it can be said that with these new armaments, the Northern Army has the ability to attack the Sac kingdom and occupy the Muerto Mountains. At the same time, they can resist the wild counterattacks of the Sac kingdom for half a year. Lampuri 13th was silent for a bit before giving a nod. Of course I understand this. But Leslie, what do you want to say by mentioning this now? Viscount Leslie's expression became serious as he said, Your Majesty, since you're clear on this, then let me ask you a question. Because of His Highness Eric, the Northern Army hasn't continued to buy equipment mainly produced by New Flyer. Do you think that they have the ability to attack the Sac kingdom? Lampuri 13th was silent. Viscount Leslie didn't wait for him to answer as he said in a very serious voice, No, Your Majesty, you definitely don't think that they have this ability. But even though you know this, you didn't give the order to stop His Highness Eric's actions. Doing this, could it be that you want to watch His Highness die? Chapter 470. Lampuri 13th was silent for a bit before saying with a sigh, Eric is my son, why would I watch him die? Viscount Leslie slowly shook his head. I don't know. But Your Majesty, what you're doing now seems to me like you want to do this. Eric is my friend who grew up with me, and as his friend, I have to ask you this question. Lampuri 13th revealed a smile that had a trace of ridicule to it. I know that after you retired from the Northern Army, Eric invited you to stay with him for a while, but this question isn't something Eric had you ask, right? Viscount Leslie's lips curled into a bitter smile as he said with a sigh, Indeed, it wasn't him who had me ask, this is my own decision. Then, did you tell Eric what you thought about it? Did you try to persuade him not to attack the Sac kingdom? Lampuri 13th asked. Viscount Leslie was silent. After a while, he gave a long sigh and shook his head again. No, Eric is filled with confidence in attacking the Sac kingdom, so he doesn't have any objections. So I hope that Your Majesty can give the order to stop him. Lampuri 13th tapped the armrest of his chair and looked at Leslie, as the ridicule in his smile deepened. Then do you know that the reason Eric is so confident is because of the people in the kingdom who support him? Your father is one of them. Viscount Leslie was even more silent. Of course he knew what role his father's Stag family played in this. He was even clear that in order to support His Highness in leading the Northern Army to attack the Sac kingdom, the Stag family had already invested at least 5 million gold coins in terms of funds and resources. As for the manpower of the Stag family, it was impossible to calculate. Other than the Stag family, the other large nobles of the kingdom that supported His Highness Eric also supported the Northern Army in various aspects, so the Northern Army had enough supplies and equipment. It could even be said that this was the most abundant the Northern Army had ever been. It was because of this that His Highness Eric was filled with confidence in attacking the Sac Kingdom. He felt that with the support of so many large nobles, he could easily defeat the Sac Kingdom and create the most glorious military merit since the Lampari Kingdom was founded. With this military merit, naturally he could easily defeat Seveni and the other Prince Mypham who no one thought highly of, becoming the only successor to the throne. Seeing that Viscount Leslie was speechless, Lampuri XIII's smile disappeared. He gave a soft snort and said in a deep voice, "Leslie, do you know that even if it is me, I can't give the order to stop Eric from attacking the Sac Kingdom?" Viscount Leslie thought about it before giving a sigh and nodding. At this time, His Highness Eric leading the Northern Army to attack the Sac Kingdom was already an arrow on the bow. It had to be fired. Even if His Highness Eric suddenly changed his mind, the large families behind him wouldn't allow him to do this. Otherwise, the large amounts of manpower and resources that the large families had invested in him and the Northern Army would be wasted. It wasn't exaggerated to say that whether it was His Highness Eric, the Northern Army, or even the large nobles that supported His Highness Eric, they were all tied to the same war chariot. This war chariot had to head to the Sac Kingdom. No one could stop it. Even the king, who held the most power in the kingdom, could not stop the chariot from moving. After all, even the most honorable king couldn't stop the will of the large noble families represented by the Stag family. Thinking of this, Viscount Leslie couldn't help giving another sigh. He looked at Lampuri XIII and couldn't help asking, "Your Majesty, I don't believe that you didn't foresee this ahead of time, but why didn't you stop it ahead of time? If you gave the order as soon as possible, I think it could have been saved." Lampuri XIII was silent for a bit before replying. Sending the three of them out was a test for them. This was Eric's choice, of course I wouldn't interfere. Viscount Leslie suddenly flew into a rage and loudly said, "But this isn't just related to Eric alone, it's also related to the tens of thousands of soldiers of the Northern Army. Do you want to see those innocent soldiers of the Northern Battlefront Army die as well?" Lampuri XIII looked at Leslie and suddenly revealed a smile. "It seems like you've been in the Northern Army for 2 years and you've already developed feelings for it. Not bad, not bad." Seeing that Lampuri XIII avoided answering his question, Viscount Leslie was even more angry. But his rationality told him that he definitely couldn't force the king to answer, so he could only suppress his anger. He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Looking at Lampuri XIII for a while, Viscount Leslie said in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, I don't know what you're thinking, but please forgive me for being disrespectful to you. I feel that your current actions are very wrong. If you keep doing this, our Lampari Kingdom will suffer a large loss, and this loss is something that even you can't take." Lampuri XIII turned his head and looked to the northwest as a dim look appeared in his eyes. "That's right, I might not be able to take the losses. But compared to the terrifying losses, I don't have any other choice. Leslie, in the face of 2 serious losses, but one of them can still be salvaged. Which one will you choose to accept?" Viscount Leslie was silent for a bit before saying in a deep voice, "I only know that people can't come back from the dead. I hope that your Majesty can seriously consider this." Lampuri XIII revealed a faint smile. "Dead people are only a small loss. Leslie, you're still young, you don't understand." Viscount Leslie took a deep breath and shook his head. He gave Lampuri XIII a bow before turning to leave. After walking out of the royal palace, Viscount Leslie looked up at Anvilmar City's sky that was a bit gloomy because of the dark clouds, and he felt that his mood was as gloomy as the sky. He didn't get the result he wanted from talking to the king, but it allowed him to understand some of the king's thoughts. However, the thoughts that he discovered caused him to feel extremely cold. If the king knew the consequences and chose not to do anything, it meant that he was already prepared for His Highness Eric's actions. However, it was because of this that Viscount Leslie's heart turned cold. His Highness Eric was still the king's son. Was he really planning on watching his son fall into danger? If Eric was me and His Majesty was my father, what would my father do? Viscount Leslie thought for a bit and found a fact that made his heart turn cold. If there was a serious conflict between him and the Stag family, he was certain that his father would give up on him without any hesitation. He would even be more ruthless than the king. Is this the fate of being born into a large noble family? Viscount Leslie shook his head with a bitter smile. Turning around, he saw that on the street outside the royal palace, there was a shop that had all kinds of household magic machines in the window. There was a magic air conditioner that kept running, blowing out warm air. It warmed the window that was covered in a layer of frost because of the cold winter until there was only water left. Seeing these household magic machines, Viscount Leslie's heart that was as cold as the season was filled with a bit of warmth. Because seeing these household magic machines, Viscount Leslie thought of the new flyer. Thinking of the new flyer, naturally he thought of Sue. Although strictly speaking, he hadn't been with Sue that long, he could see that Sue was someone who had a long-term goal and was filled with passion because of this goal. Moreover, this goal in his heart was something that Viscount Leslie appreciated very much. So whenever he thought of Sue, he would feel a bit comforted. If everyone in the kingdom could be like Sue, working hard to improve everyone's lives, how much better life would be in the kingdom right now. After thinking for a bit, Viscount Leslie gave a self-deprecating laugh. He was very clear that even if it was Sue himself, it was impossible for him to have this kind of naive idea. Looking around, Viscount Leslie sat in a horse carriage and came to Count Samo's yard in Unveil City. Seeing Viscount Leslie suddenly arrive, Manager Ram came forward in a daze. "Lord Viscount, when did you come back?" "I just came back yesterday," Viscount Leslie replied with a smile before looking into the yard. "Is Alex here? Have him come out, I want to discuss something with him." Manager Ram shook his head. "Alex already came back to Banta City a month ago, don't you know?" "Oh right, you just came back yesterday, so of course you don't know. Look at how dumb I am." Back in Banta City. Viscount Leslie was surprised. Viscount Leslie was surprised. Did he go back last minute? Did he say when he would come back? No, he is no longer the new Flyers manager in Unveil City. According to what he said before he left, after returning to Banta City this time, he might not have a chance to come back to Unveil City. Manager Ram said. "No longer a manager? Why?" Viscount Leslie was a bit curious. Viscount Leslie was a bit surprised. Wasn't he personally sent by Sue? Could it be that he's planning on giving him a promotion this time? "I'm not clear, but it shouldn't be a promotion. It should be a punishment," Manager Ram said in an uncertain voice. "When Chairman Sue came to Unveil City, I saw that his expression wasn't that good when he saw Alex. I think that Alex must have done something to make Chairman Sue unhappy." "Make Sue's expression look bad?" Viscount Leslie knit his brows. Viscount Leslie knit his brows. To make that good-tempered fellow look bad, it seems like Alex really did something wrong. All right, since he's no longer here, the new Flyer should have someone to take over, right? Who is the manager taking over? Do you know where he is now? The one taking over is Manager Flame. He just... Isn't that Manager Flame's horse carriage? He's back. Viscount Leslie turned around and saw a man around 30 years old jump out of the horse carriage. Without waiting for Viscount Leslie to speak, Manager Flame came over with a wide smile. He gave Viscount Leslie a bow and said, "Lord Viscount, if Sir Chairman knows that you're back in Unveil City, he will definitely be very happy. I think that when he comes back from Soul City, he will definitely make a special trip to Unveil City to see you." "You recognize me?" Viscount Leslie asked in a surprised voice. "I've seen the Lord Viscount several times in Banta City before, but of course, the Lord Viscount definitely won't remember this little one." Manager Flame said with a smile. Viscount Leslie nodded and didn't pursue this topic. He then asked, "You are the New Flyer's new manager here? Then you have the authority to represent the New Flyer?" Manager Flame said in a thoughtful voice, "For normal matters, I can represent our company. Alright, I came this time to discuss cooperating with the New Flyer, opening a magic machine factory. Can you make this decision?" Manager Flame looked at Viscount Leslie in surprise. After thinking about it, he asked, "Lord Viscount, are you representing yourself or the Stag family?" Viscount Leslie replied with a faint smile, "I'm only representing myself." Manager Flame's expression became very strange. Chapter 471. As winter approached, the weather in Soul City became colder and colder. Early this morning, there were already snowflakes in the sky. Each snowflake was like cotton, falling down piece by piece. In just a single morning, Soul City was covered in snow white. Looking out from the window on the top floor of the city lord's mansion, other than the white snow that could be seen everywhere, there was only a wall made of black stone bricks that were even more obvious against the snow. It was as if pieces of ugly scars had been condensed in this pure white world. "Count Samo, I have to say, the color of the houses in your Soul City really doesn't look good. It's especially obvious when it snows." Princess Caroline looked out the window and shook her head at Count Samo with a sigh. Count Samo and Sui on the side looked at each other before laughing. "Your Highness, don't you think that black houses give people a warm feeling? Your Drake Duchy is closer to the north, so it should be easier for you to feel this." "No, our Drake Duchy's houses are all deep red. Compared to the gloomy black, I feel that the flame-like red gives people a better feeling of warmth in winter." Princess Caroline shook her head. "The more important thing is that red looks better than black, right?" Count Samo shook his head and decided not to keep arguing with Princess Caroline on this matter. His many years of experience told him that arguing with women, especially arguing about aesthetics, was asking for trouble and had no meaning at all. Sui on the side said with a smile, "In theory, color will indeed have a certain effect on your mind. But compared to making people feel warm mentally, isn't it more effective to make people feel warm physically?" Princess Caroline looked over with her beautiful eyes and revealed a faint smile. She sat down beside Sui without any courtesy and asked Sui in a gentle voice, "Then Chairman Su, what do you think about the suggestion I made before to build a household magic machine factory in our Drake Duchy? If we can directly produce magic air conditioners in our duchy, I think that the people of our duchy won't care so much about the color of their houses." Sui gave a soft cough. He tilted his head from Princess Caroline's passionate gaze and replied, "I've said it before, there's no problem investing in a factory in your Drake Duchy, but how can your duchy guarantee that our company's factory won't be threatened by the Sack Kingdom?" Princess Caroline gave a soft snort. "70 City is only 100 kilometers away from the Sack Kingdom's border. Why aren't you worried that your factory will be threatened by the Sack Kingdom? Other than that, if my information isn't wrong, Chairman Su, when you came to Soul City, your motorcade was robbed, right? I don't think that you're in the Lamy Kingdom is safer than in our Drake Duchy." Sui and Count Samoyed looked at each other. Even Princess Caroline knew about this, so anyone in the Lamy Kingdom who wanted to know would know about this. "Your Highness, I don't agree to this," Count Samoyed said. "Not only does Soul City have 8,000 well-equipped city guards, His Majesty has also sent the 3rd Regiment of the garrison. There are over 30,000 soldiers in Soul City, so it's more than enough to protect Soul City." Princess Caroline looked at Count Sean and rolled her eyes. She clapped her hands and said, "All right, I was just joking. Indeed, Chairman Su, you might be worried about investing in our duchy, but you wouldn't be worried about the safety of our factory here, right?" Sui couldn't help smiling. It seemed like Princess Caroline was just bargaining. Her goal was to build a factory in Seoul City with the new flyer. Of course, this was Su-yi's plan, so he didn't refute her and just said with a nod, "Of course there's no problem here. But Your Highness, if you want to invest in a magic machine factory with our company and participate in the design of the magic machines, I can't agree to this. The technology related to the magic machines isn't something our company can disclose, so we won't cooperate with anyone on this." Stingy. Caroline rolled her eyes at Su-yi with a charming look. "If you don't want us to participate in the design, then we won't participate. But Chairman Su, I've mentioned to you before that our duchy needs all kinds of magic machines, so I think that we can cooperate to build a magic machine factory. Although we won't participate in the design, the magic machine factory will be developed according to our requirements, so there shouldn't be a problem, right? You can, but you have to remember that it will be developed according to your requirements first. It won't be completely controlled by you. Do you understand what I mean?" Su-yi said with a serious look. "Of course." Seeing Su-yi agree, Princess Caroline's smile bloomed like a flower. She came close to Su-yi and took his arm, giving him a teasing look. "You're a man, of course you want to take the initiative." Feeling the softness on his arm, Su-yi gave a bitter laugh. He shook his head and stood up, saying to Satsuma Count, "Lord City Lord, it's time, let's leave the city." Satsuma Count also stood up. "All right, it's better to directly send those things to the factory, so they won't have to waste a trip to the city." Su-yi turned to look at Princess Caroline. He thought that she would definitely come, but he never thought that she would shake her head with a smile. "You can go. As for this magic machine factory, I still need to seriously consider it." Su-yi nodded. He put on his coat with Satsuma Count and walked out of the city lord's manor. Satsuma Count's private horse carriage quickly drove the two of them out of the city lord's manor, heading towards the south gate of Seoul City. "Su-yi, are you really planning on cooperating with the Drake Duchy to build a magic machine factory?" Count Satsuma looked at the city lord's manor behind the horse carriage and asked Su-yi with knit brows. "Even if you refuse the Drake Duchy's participation in the design, since the magic machine factory will develop the magic machines according to their request, there will be a part of the technology that will be leaked." "I understand." Su-yi nodded. "Actually, I did this on purpose." "Oh? What did you consider? Tell me about it," Count Satsuma asked in a curious voice. Su-yi was silent for a bit before asking back, "Lord City Lord, you should know that compared to the Drake Duchy, the Sak Kingdom is a bigger threat to our Lampari Kingdom, right?" "Of course. The Drake Duchy is only a small duchy. It's impossible for them to pose a real threat to our Lampari Kingdom," Count Satsuma said with a nod. "Then, Sir Count, do you think, if we pull the Drake Duchy to our side, will it threaten the Sak Kingdom?" Count Satsuma narrowed his eyes and after thinking for a bit, he nodded. "I understand what you mean. If we can pull the Drake Duchy to our side, it will be of great help to our Lampari Kingdom. But have you thought of a problem? The Drake Duchy has been able to survive in the cracks between us and the Sak Kingdom for all these years because they have been swinging back and forth, making both sides have scruples. If they really chose one of the two sides, what awaited them would only be a fate of destruction. Do you think they will do this?" Su-yi revealed a faint smile. "No matter how weak a country is, they won't give up the hope of becoming stronger. So Princess Caroline has always hoped that I can give the magic machines, especially the military magic machine technology, to the Drake Duchy. Of course I can't agree to these conditions, but there's no problem in letting them taste a bit of sweetness first. After they taste a bit of sweetness, they have no choice but to make a choice." Count Satsuma looked at Su-yi in a daze for a while before shaking his head and saying with a sigh, "There are times when I really don't know how to evaluate you. I can say that you're an idiot in politics, but you're quite sharp on these matters. But are you certain that you can grasp this?" "I'll need the Lord City Lord to pay attention to this," Su-yi said with a smile. "If nothing unexpected happens, I'll be leaving in 3 days and returning to Banta City. I can't stay here for long, so I can only give orders from afar. As for the specifics, I'll need the Lord City Lord to take care of it." Count Satsuma nodded. "This is my responsibility as the City Lord." The horse carriage drove out of Seoul City's south gate, and after waiting for around 20 minutes, there was a motorcade of magic cars that slowly drove over. Compared to the motorcade Sui led before, this magic car motorcade was even bigger and more spectacular. There were actually 50 transport magic cars. When the medium-sized magic car in front stopped, the first one to jump out was the Fersen Carriage Company's chairman Pompey. Sui jumped out of the horse carriage with a bit of surprise and came over to greet him. "Chairman Pompey, why are you personally escorting this batch of goods?" Chairman Pompey's fat face was red from the cold wind and his body was trembling. When he saw Sui, he immediately complained, "Chairman Su, I didn't think of this problem before, but I've found that when your new flyer was making the medium-sized magic cars, couldn't you add a magic air conditioner to them? That wouldn't take much effort, right? Moreover, it's very practical. If there was, it wouldn't be a problem for me to pay an extra 100 gold coins for each medium-sized magic car." Sui laughed. He thought that the magic cars had to be installed step by step. How could it be done in one step? Moreover, there were different grades and prices, so of course it was impossible for them all to be installed at once. Of course, there was no need to tell Chairman Pompey this. Sui just nodded with a smile. "All right, I'll go back and tell the people at the research center to have them consider this problem. It really has been hard on you, but Chairman Pompey, why did you personally come this time? Isn't it to see Sir Count?" Chairman Pompey gave a bow to Count Satsuma, who was coming out of the horse carriage with a laugh. "Lord Count, look, our Fersen Carriage Company can transport this much goods from a place as far away as Banta City. What do you think about the transportability of our carriage company?" Count Satsuma nodded and praised. "It's very outstanding. I think that in the entire Lampari Kingdom, other than your Fersen Carriage Company, there is no other carriage company that can complete this difficult task of transporting goods in this weather." Chairman Pompey's fat face immediately bloomed with a smile. "Then Sir Count Satsuma, do you think that our Fersen Carriage Company is qualified to monopolize Seoul City's transport business?" Sui and Count Satsuma looked at each other before breaking out in laughter. This Chairman Pompey, in order to expand the business scope of the Fersen Carriage Company, he really was working hard. Chapter 472. This time Chairman Pompey was personally escorting the production magic machines for the cement factory and steel mill that the Frestek Chamber of Commerce was about to build in Seoul City. Other than this, considering that this place was too far from Banta City and adding in the cooperation with the Drake Duchy, Sui was planning on building a production magic machine workshop here to make some production magic machines that weren't easy to transport. The most important thing was to prepare for the establishment of the munitions factory. Of course, Sui definitely wouldn't make the core parts outside the Falling Rain Valley. Although Seoul City had Satsuma Count as the city lord, so it was a bit safe, this place was still too close to the Sak Kingdom. If the Sak Kingdom had any plans on Seoul City, it was hard to guarantee that there wouldn't be any problems. Even if Satsuma Count had patted his chest in front of Princess Caroline, Sui had to be cautious, so naturally he couldn't ignore this. After getting into Chairman Pompey's medium-sized magic car with Satsuma Count, when the car started, Sui felt a chill coming from the car and he had to tighten his coat. Seeing Sui's actions, Satsuma Count also tightened his collar. He turned to look around the magic car before asking Sui with a frown, "Sui, Chairman Pompey was right. Since this medium-sized magic car is for people to ride, we should consider how comfortable it is. For example, adding a magic air conditioner would make it much better. Also, why do I feel that there are air leaks in the car?" It isn't hard to add a magic air conditioner, but it isn't that easy to integrate it into the car. Sui explained. Our company's research center is currently testing this, and I believe that it won't take long before we finish upgrading the medium-sized magic car. As for the air leaks, there's no other way. The current welding technology isn't up to standard. Speaking of this, Chairman Su, since your company has named this magic car the medium-sized magic car, does that mean there are also small and large-sized magic cars? Chairman Pompey on the side asked. That's right. Su-e nodded. Compared to this medium-sized magic passenger car that can seat 13 people, in our company's plans for passenger magic cars, there are smaller ones that can only seat a few people or even a single person. There are small magic cars that can be driven by a single person. Other than this, there are larger magic passenger cars that can seat several dozen people. It can only hold one person. President Pompey was surprised. Then how much is your company planning on selling this small magic car for? It hasn't been confirmed yet. But the price of a magic car wasn't just determined by how many people it could carry, there were many other factors. So the small passenger magic car you asked about might be priced at a few hundred gold coins, or it might be priced at tens of thousands of gold coins. Tens of thousands of gold coins. This time, even Samoyed Count couldn't remain calm. Sui, are you kidding me? It can only seat one person, and you want to sell it for tens of thousands of gold coins? Who would be dumb enough to spend tens of thousands of gold coins to buy something that isn't practical at all? Sui revealed a faint smile. Lord City Lord, other than practicality, there are many people in this world who pursue comfort and enjoyment. If you were given a magic car and you could drive it as comfortably as if it was your own home, while also having a speed of over 100 kilometers per hour, or even 200 kilometers per hour, would you be willing to spend tens of thousands of gold coins to buy it? 1 to 200 kilometers per hour? How is that possible? Samoyed Count and Chairman Pompey were both surprised. Chairman Pompey said in an excited voice, Chairman Su, if your company can really develop such a fast magic car, not to mention tens of thousands of gold coins, even if it costs hundreds of thousands of gold coins, there would be many people who would buy it. Samoyed Count knit his brows and shook his head. He was a noble who advocated pragmatism, so he looked down on those who were extravagant and spent money in pursuit of enjoyment the most. He couldn't understand the strong attraction of the small magic car that Sui mentioned to those who pursued luxury. But that didn't stop him from agreeing with Chairman Pompey. Right now the Signs Road was mainly used by horse carriages, and they could only maintain a speed of around 30 kilometers per hour. The magic car that New Flyer had developed was only 40 kilometers per hour, but it was already very popular in the Lampari Kingdom and attracted everyone's interest. If New Flyer suddenly took out a magic car that could go 1 to 200 kilometers per hour, it would definitely cause a stir in the signs. On the continent there were rich people all over. For those people, not to mention spending tens of thousands of gold coins, even if they spent hundreds of thousands of gold coins, as long as they had a magic car that was incomparably fast, it wasn't a problem at all. I want to take out a magic car like this right now. But it's a pity that right now I can't do it for at least a few years. Sui shook his head in regret. Right now the magic cars used by the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce were all using the wind magic engine. Although this engine was very stable in terms of sustainability, it wasn't enough in terms of explosiveness. According to Sui's estimates, the maximum power that this wind magic engine could produce was around 80 kilometers per hour for this medium-sized magic car. It would be very hard to break 100 kilometers per hour, not to mention reaching 200 kilometers per hour. To reach this high speed, Sui felt that the only way was to use the fire magic engine. But the development of the fire magic engine had just begun, so there were still many problems that needed to be solved. When the fire magic engine was finished and put into use, producing the first fire magic car, even according to Su Yi's most optimistic estimates, it would take at least 5 years. Normally speaking, it would take at least 10 years. Hearing Su Yi's response, Count and Chairman Pompey weren't disappointed, rather they let out sighs of relief. If the new flyer could really make this heaven-defying magic car in a short period of time, they would have to doubt if Su Yi was even human. The motorcade went around Seoul City and came to the new flyer production base in the west of the city. Before Su Yi led the motorcade to this base, there were already factories that had been built. Now they just needed to move the production magic machines and other equipment in and they could start working. This was one of the things that Signs was more convenient compared to Earth. Because all the magic cars used magic crystals as their energy source, they didn't need to set up circuits like the factories on Earth. As for the problem of water, because this place was close to the river, it was much easier to solve. During these days, Camby's dwarves and the new flyer's staff had already finished arranging the first batch of goods. Camby's group had even built a small magic machine development center and had been testing the new working environment of the magic machines over the past few days. The results of the tests showed that because Seoul City was in the north, the winters were very cold. The magic machines would be affected by this kind of cold weather, and the most common problem was that they didn't have enough power. This wasn't hard for Su Yi. Other than the magic machines that Chairman Pompey had brought, they had also brought various household magic machines, including 10 magic air conditioners. After placing these magic air conditioners around the workshop and putting in enough magic crystals, the 10 magic air conditioners began to blow out warm air. It didn't take long for the entire workshop to become warm. Feeling the warm air from the magic air conditioners, Su Yi couldn't help asking Chairman Pompey, who was curiously looking around, "Since you're feeling cold on the road, why don't you use these magic air conditioners first?" Chairman Pompey looked at Su Yi in surprise. "Chairman Su, are you doubting me? Our Fersen Carriage Company is a professional logistics company. How could we take out the goods that our customers entrusted to us for our own use? This would seriously affect the reputation of our company." Su Yi laughed and gave a nod of praise. He turned to Count Samo and said, "Lord City Lord, look, the Fersen Carriage Company's reputation is quite good. You really should seriously consider giving the logistics of Seoul City to them." Hearing Su Yi's words, Chairman Pompey looked at Su Yi with gratitude before looking at Samo Count with an expectant look. Samo Count found this funny as he pointed at Su Yi. "Speak, what benefits did the Fersen Carriage Company give you to make you recommend them this much? Aren't I speaking the truth?" Su Yi gave a shrug before continuing, "Lord City Lord, I am serious. Our Banta City will have more and more connections with Seoul City in the future, and after Seoul City develops, it will be connected to the other cities of the kingdom, even the Drake Duchy and other countries. We need a professional logistics company to take care of these tasks." "Then why don't I find a company in Seoul City?" Count Samo asked back. Su Yi looked at Chairman Pompey and Chairman Pompey patted his chest as he loudly said, "Sir Count, our Fersen Carriage Company is interested in setting up a branch in Seoul City. We ask for Sir Count's support." Count Samo looked at Chairman Pompey before turning to Su Yi. "Su Yi, you should understand. Only it doesn't matter if I agree. In the Northeast Province, there isn't just a single city like our Seoul City. Could it be that you've forgotten what happened on your way here?" Su Yi's eyes had a cold glow. "I won't give those people another chance." Chapter 473. Dilacadan City was a bit more to the south than Seoul City, but the snowstorm that came from the north still covered Dilacadan City in the morning, dyeing the city white. Count Michel put down the letter in his hand and looked out the window. There was snow outside and icicles hanging from the branches, looking very beautiful. It also meant that Dilacadan City would have a good harvest next year. However, Earl Michel didn't feel happy at all. Instead, he felt a little worried. His Highness Eric was clearly dissatisfied with Longley Count secretly contacting Sui and even inviting New Flyer to invest in Basaru City. He even angrily accused Longley Count of being a traitor. Not only had he betrayed his Highness Eric, he had also betrayed his dead father. Perhaps it was because of Longley Count's anger, but his Highness Eric was also very dissatisfied with Michel's suggestion of cooperating with New Flyer. His words were filled with doubt towards Michel, even questioning him. He was just short of asking Michel if he also wanted to be a traitor. Count Michel wasn't surprised by his Highness Eric's reaction, but he was very disappointed that his Highness Eric only knew how to express his anger in this situation. Before he truly understood why Longley Count contacted Sui, he had already decided that Longley Count was a traitor. In Michel's eyes, this was a very stingy method. Even if Longley Count had contacted Sui and invited New Flyer to invest in Basaru City, this was different from him betraying his Highness Eric. It didn't mean that Basaru City and the Longley family would join Her Highness Seveni's side. At this time, His Highness Eric should have investigated the situation and made a decision after understanding Longley Count's thoughts. He shouldn't have pushed Longley Count out from the beginning. He had already decided that Longley Count was a traitor, so even if Longley Count didn't have any thoughts of betraying His Highness Eric, he would be forced to leave in this situation. His Highness Eric didn't have that many supporters in the Northeast Province. There was only himself, Longley Count, and Lamart City's Count Will. Now that he had decided that Longley Count was a traitor and he was doubting himself, could it be that he was planning on abandoning the support of the Northeast Province? Although Count Will's Lamart City was the largest city in the Northeast Province, just with Lamart City, it couldn't represent the entire Northeast Province. Not to mention that compared to Her Highness Seveni's firm supporter Samo Count in Seoul City, Count Will wasn't that strong. Moreover, the New Flyer had already invested in Seoul City. If Samo Count and Seoul City were given a few years to develop to the same level as Banta City, the entire Northeast Province would have to listen to Samo Count. Thinking of this, Michel Count suddenly felt a strong sense of exhaustion. His Highness Eric's attitude towards him made him a bit unhappy, and His Highness Eric's method of dealing with this matter made him very disappointed. He even felt that his choice back then was a bit wrong. Perhaps it would be better to support Her Highness Seveni? As soon as this thought appeared in Count Michel's mind, he immediately tossed it out of his mind. As an old noble who was almost 60 years old and had experienced several changes in the kingdom's politics, he had a principle, which was that in the most intense competition, there were winners and losers, but the ones who weren't welcomed the most were the ones who couldn't decide. Michel Count gave a sigh and pinched his forehead, calming his expression. He picked up the bell on the table and shook it, calling his personal butler Indiana. Go and investigate what Longley Count and Sui did in the 2 days they were together. Even investigate what they said. Michel Count first gave the order. Then send a gift to Count Longley in my name and tell him something. The butler looked at Michel Count. Michel Count paused, and after thinking for a bit, he continued, "Tell him that I hope he can inherit old Longley's will and become Basaru City's city lord." The butler's expression was a bit strange. This was his first time receiving such a vague order from Count Michel. But the butler didn't have any thoughts of asking and obediently wrote down these 2 orders. "That's right, has the goods for His Highness Eric been prepared?" Michel Count asked. "It's already prepared, we can put it on the carriage and set off at any time," the butler replied. "Carriage?" Michel Count smiled with a bit of mockery in his smile. "All right, arrange for the carriage to set off as soon as possible. His Highness Eric probably can't wait any longer." The butler made a sound of acknowledgement and then stopped. "Speak," Michel Count said in a deep voice. The butler quickly said, "Sir Count, when we were collecting these goods, there were some rebellious people who tried to resist. In the end, the city guard soldiers didn't pay attention and were too heavy-handed, resulting in. Seeing the butler's troubled expression, Michel Count's face sunk. How many died? The butler replied with a bitter smile. 13 have died and 56 are heavily injured. I'm afraid 20 or so of them won't be able to hold on. That means close to 40 people will die? Michel Count's face was so gloomy that it looked like water was about to drip out. I told them to collect goods, not to kill people. The butler saw the anger hidden in Michel Count's eyes and was afraid, but he still had to explain. Sir Count, it's already the end of the year, and there aren't many things left in the homes of the commoners. They were forcefully taken away, so of course they would go all out. The city guard soldiers couldn't just not fight back, so then. The butler didn't dare to keep talking. Seeing the expression on Michel Count's face, he suspected that if he kept talking, he would also be in trouble. Michel Count fell silent with a gloomy face for a while before taking a deep breath. He waved his hand and said, "Since they're already dead, then forget it. Fine the soldiers who killed them 100 gold coins each. If they can't pay up, then throw them all in jail." The butler was startled. "Sir Count, I'm afraid there will be questions." Michel Count looked at him, and the butler immediately swallowed his words back into his stomach. "All right. Go and arrange for the goods to be transported out." Michel Count waved his hand and had the butler leave. Seeing the tired look on Michel Count's face, the butler didn't dare say anything else and silently left after giving a bow. Michel Count stood there in a daze for a while before he suddenly gave a sigh and revealed a self-deprecating smile. "So in our large Delacaton city, it's a bit hard for us to gather 300,000 gold coins worth of goods? ####, Lord City Lord, these are the accounts that will be handed over to the kingdom's treasury, please take a look." Banta City's City Lord Manor's financial officer Fumar respectfully took out an account book and handed it over to Seveni on the other side. Seveni took it and looked it over before putting it down with a nod. "I'm already clear on this account, there's no need to check it," Seveni said with a faint smile. "Our Banta City can pay over 700,000 gold coins to the kingdom's treasury this year because of everyone's hard work. It's been hard on you. I'm here to thank you on behalf of Royal Father." The City Lord Manor's financial officers in the room quickly stood up and gave a bow to Seveni in fear. "Your Highness, this is our work, we can't accept your thanks." That being said, everyone's faces were filled with joy. The entire room was filled with a joyous atmosphere. Banta City's income this year was much higher than last year, so the lives of everyone in Banta City had greatly improved. After these City Lord Manor's financial officers left the City Lord Manor, they would be respected no matter where they went. "It's because of your outstanding work that our Banta City can develop this well, so it's right to thank you," Seveni said. "All right, everyone sit down. Now let's discuss Banta City's development plan for next year. Baron Fumar, tell me, after we hand it over to the kingdom's treasury and after we take care of this year's expenses, how much money does our Banta City have left?" Baron Fumar didn't need to look at the records as he directly replied, "There's 1,276,346 gold coins left. That's close to 1,280,000 gold coins." Seveni nodded. "As for how to spend this money, does anyone have any good suggestions?" Everyone looked at each other and hesitated a bit. "Don't be afraid, just give your opinions. I just want to ask if you have any feasible suggestions." Seveni encouraged them. Then, "Lord City Lord, I'll give a suggestion first." Baron Fumar raised his hand and said. Seveni nodded to him and gave him an encouraging smile. Baron Fumar quickly sat up and said with a serious look, "Your Highness, I propose taking out a sum of money to renovate the old district of our Banta City. Now our Banta City is gradually developing into the most prosperous city in the south. But the old district is still the same as before. I feel that it doesn't match the current status of our Banta City." "That's right," compared to the clean, beautiful, and tidy new district outside, the old district is simply another world. Another administrative officer echoed. Another official added, "The people of the old district all want to move to the new district. If it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to save some money to buy a villa built by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, I would have already moved out." That's right, the old district is small and crowded, it's not convenient to do anything. If we can renovate it and make it a bit more beautiful, that's not bad. I also think the same. Hearing everyone agree, Seveni thought about it before nodding. This is a pretty good suggestion. Then Baron Fumar, since you've made this suggestion, have you thought about how much money you'll need to spend? Baron Fumar seemed to have thought about it a long time ago. With a confident look, he replied, "My lord, it's obviously impossible for us to really make drastic changes to the old city. So, my proposal is only to repair the parts that are particularly old and can't be used. So it's just building some public facilities, fixing some broken parts, and making some improvements. According to my initial estimates, it should be around 50,000 gold coins." Only 50,000? Seveni was a bit surprised. You really are thrifty. Alright, taking away the 50,000 gold coins, we still have a surplus of 1,200,000 gold coins. Do you have any better suggestions? Baron Fumar was a bit surprised. "Lord City Lord, do you want to spend all 1,200,000 gold coins? Of course we can't spend it all. But there's no use in leaving all this money on hand, right? This money comes from the taxes paid by the citizens of Banta City, so of course it should be spent on improving their lives. Come, think of a new suggestion." Everyone looked at each other and couldn't think of a good idea for a while. Seeing everyone's awkward appearances, Seveni gave a sigh. She thought that if Sui was here, he would definitely have a bunch of new ideas. This fellow was very good at earning money, but he was also very good at spending money. But then Seveni found it a bit funny. When all the cities in the kingdom were having headaches over their finances at the end of the year, they were worrying about how to spend money next year. This really was a kind of extravagant worry. Chapter 474. There was less than half a month until New Year's. Even if the people of Banta City were focused on their work because of the high wages at this time, most people were preparing for New Year's and they all stopped what they were doing. Akali had announced to her 2 research groups that they were on vacation 2 days ago. Then she had been busy taking care of the research after the members left, as well as making a year-end report. Sui attached great importance to the work of the Academy of Magic. Not only did he need to look at their report every once in a while, he also needed each research group to submit a summary of their research this year at the end of the year. He also needed to evaluate the progress of next year's research and determine the general direction of next year's research. Akali didn't like this kind of work the most when she was in the academy. But now that she was the leader of the 2 research groups, this report could only be completed by her and no one else was qualified. Then again, Akali was very willing to show off in front of Sui, so although writing this year-end report was very boring for her, she still insisted on completing it with a very serious attitude each year. After writing the final word of the report, Akali gave a long stretch. After finishing this report, it meant that her work for this year was over. Following this, it was officially the holidays and she could properly rest for a while. Looking at the gloomy weather outside the window, Akali thought that it might snow again today. Thinking of snow, she thought of her hometown in the north of the kingdom. If nothing unexpected happened, it should be covered in snow right now. Thinking of her hometown, Akali couldn't help feeling a bit homesick. Although she was happy working at the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce and had a good salary, because it was too far from her hometown, she could only go back during New Year's each year. Now that she hadn't seen her family for a year, Akali missed them very much. I'll just go back and pack my things and head home tomorrow. Akali's personality had always been one to do what she said. After tidying up the lab, she headed to the chief's office with the report she had written. Each research group's year-end report would be given to Chief Evita, who would give it to Sui. Akali wasn't an exception. When she came to the chief's office, the door was closed. She went to Evita's research room, and although the door wasn't locked, Evita wasn't inside. Akali thought about it and turned to leave the Academy of Magic. Since Evita wasn't in the office or the research room, she should be in that place. Walking out of the Academy of Magic, Akali found that the Falling Rain Valley was more deserted compared to normal. The workers were all on vacation. Although New Flyer had a large backlog of orders, when faced with the issue of vacation, Sui had clearly stated in the meeting before he left that no matter how heavy the work was, it couldn't delay the vacation. So after Sui left, the CEO of the company announced that all the factories of the company would be closed for vacation. Even if there were many companies in Banta City that were dissatisfied with New Flyer's orders, since Sui had already made his decision, the other companies couldn't do anything. After all, other than New Flyer, the other companies couldn't provide the magic machines they wanted. Akali was very supportive of Sui's decision and even praised Sui in private, but what she received in return was a bitter laugh from Sui. Now that our New Flyer is the biggest company, I can act arrogantly and ignore the feelings of the customers. But this method isn't good. What I'm happy to see is that the competition in the industry becomes fierce, causing our company to have to comply with the orders of the customers. In the end, we have to consider the consequences of taking a vacation. Akali didn't understand what Sui was worried about, but she knew that according to Sui's words, at least for the next few years, New Flyer wouldn't need to look at other people's faces if they wanted to take a vacation. As a third-grade researcher of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, as well as leading 2 research groups, Akali was more clear than most people that New Flyer had a terrifying advantage in terms of technology compared to other companies that wanted to produce magic machines. At least the thing that Evita was currently researching, other than New Flyer, there wasn't a single company that was researching it, not even a single person. Even in New Flyer's Academy of Magic, only Evita and a few dwarves, including Kanbai, were researching it. Even Akali wasn't involved. After leaving the Academy of Magic, Akali headed towards the depths of the Falling Rain Valley. Because New Flyer had built various factories, the Falling Rain Valley had basically been completely developed. However, the Falling Rain Valley occupied an area of more than 10 square kilometers, and there was still a large area that hadn't been developed. Currently, apart from the bottom of the valley being flattened to facilitate future development, the rest of the area wasn't too different from its original state. Not long after leaving the industrial zone, Akali raised her head and saw a black dot scurrying back and forth in the sky not too far away. After walking towards the black dot for a while, Akali found Evita on a barren little hill who was staring at the black dot in the sky with rapt attention. "Hey, standing so high up, aren't you cold?" Evita didn't notice that someone had come to her side. After hearing Akali's voice, she was clearly surprised. After seeing that it was Akali, Evita glared at her. "You finished your work? Why did you come here to find me?" I finished the report and was planning to give it to you. But I found that you weren't in the research facility, so I knew that you must have run outside to do experiment." Akali raised her head to look at the black dot circling in the sky and asked, "How is it? Is there any progress with the magic airship experiment?" Evita shook her head in distress. "There's no problem with taking off and flying slowly in the air, but there's still a problem with maintaining a long flight time. Just like right now, it can only fly for 2 hours at most before various problems occur. It's either the magic crystal's magic power supply being unstable, or it's because the magic array inside the magic airship is changing. There are a lot of problems. Why do I feel that these problems aren't problems with our Academy of Magic?" Akali said in a confused voice. The problem with the materials should be managed by the Materials Research Facility. That won't do. Evita shook her head. The chairman said that materials research takes the most time and it's hard to make any improvements in a short period of time, so I can only think of a way based on the current materials. For example, I'm considering if I should add an earth magic array to the parts that are easy to deform to increase the hardness of the material. That way it can last a bit longer. Doesn't this thing have a wind magic array attached to it? If you add an earth magic array, wouldn't there be a conflict? Wouldn't it be much more difficult? Akali was a bit confused. There's always a way to overcome the difficulty. It's much better than having no way to solve the material problem. Evita said with a faint smile. Isn't the problem that the Academy of Magic needs to solve in terms of magic? As for the other problems, we can't care about them. Akali muttered in a low voice before saying in an indignant voice, Sir Chairman really is something. He always has high requirements for our Academy of Magic. Look at the group that studies magic array resonance under me. Sir Chairman only tells them to research this thing thoroughly, and it's best if they can come up with a detailed data system. He's a powerful magician himself. Doesn't he know how hard it is to come up with a detailed data system for something like magic? Doesn't this mean that the chairman has high hopes for you? Evita pursed her lips into a smile. Moreover, isn't the chairman organizing a theoretical system in this field? The book he published last month, Discussion on the Basics of Magic Machinery Power System, actually had a lot of descriptions in this regard. I feel that he's already considered this field much further than us. Humph, if he's that capable, then he can research it himself. What does he need us researchers for? Seeing the angry Akali, Evita shook her head with a smile. She lightly pressed the remote control in her hand, and the black dot in the sky began to slow down and slowly descend. When it descended to a height where they could clearly see it, they found that the black dot was actually an oval-shaped magic airship. If Sui was here, he would definitely recognize that this thing was exactly the same as the model of the magic airship that had hit his head in Evita's lab. However, the difference in size was like heaven and earth. The model that hit Sui before wasn't even as long as a palm, but this one was already over 3 meters long and a meter wide. There was even a groove in the middle, so it wasn't a problem for a person to sit in. Akali looked at the model of the magic airship that slowly descended in front of her and was a bit stunned. Hey, Evita, I haven't seen it in a while, and your experimental model has already become this big? Akali said as she walked over to look inside the magic airship. She was even more shocked. Wow, there's actually such a large piece of iron in here. It can still fly so high like this? It's too strong. This piece of iron is only 50 kilograms, it's not even as heavy as a person. Evita shook her head. My goal in researching this magic airship is to allow normal people to fly in the sky. It's still far from that. Akali clicked her tongue and praised. If you can really research this thing and allow normal people to fly in the sky, then you'll be too amazing. I feel that when that time comes, your name will be written in the history of the entire continent. Evita rolled her eyes at her. The chairman has already said that you developed the magic array resonance technology. In the history of the continent, your name can already be written. Akali giggled. What? Are you jealous of me? Evita slowly shook her head. If I really wanted to be jealous, I wouldn't be jealous of you. I would be jealous of the chairman. No matter what we research, I think that in the history of the continent, our names won't be carved deeper than his. Akali was silent for a bit before slowly nodding. Chapter 475. The two discussed the magic arrays of the magic airship for a bit before Evita suddenly asked, Right, Akali, you've already finished your report. Are you preparing to go home in the next 2 days? Akali was stunned before reacting. Right, other than handing in my report, I also want to ask when you're planning on going back? Do you want to come with me? I want to set off tomorrow. I haven't decided yet. Evita shook her head. But I definitely can't leave tomorrow. The Academy of Magic still has a lot of work to do, and the magic airship is currently in the most crucial stage of development. I'm afraid that after going back for New Year's, I'll forget some things. How could that be? Akali immediately said, We've been studying these things every day. How could we forget in less than a month of New Year's? Aren't you looking down on yourself too much? In short, although the company's holiday is very long, I'm not planning on leaving that early. Perhaps I might as well not go back. Ah? You're not going back? Akali was stunned. This is New Year's. You're not planning on going home? If your parents knew, they would definitely be angry. Evita said with a smile. I just said that I'm not going back. I didn't say that I wasn't planning on spending New Year's with my parents. Akali was surprised. What do you mean? Because I'm considering if I should bring them from their hometown to Banta City to spend New Year's. Evita replied, The winters in the north are very cold and the conditions at home aren't as good as here. If we just rely on the magic air conditioner, it won't be as comfortable as Banta City. Rather than letting them spend New Year's in their hometown, it's better to bring them over. You don't have any relatives other than your parents. This idea isn't bad. Akali thought about it before saying in a dejected voice, But I have no other choice. There are many relatives in my hometown, and if I just bring my parents over, they wouldn't be willing. Evita looked at the dejected Akali, and after thinking for a bit, she asked with a serious look, Other than bringing my parents over for New Year's, I was also planning on letting them settle down in Banta City. Akali, don't you have such thoughts? Settle down? Akali was startled. She rolled her eyes and nodded. That's right. But as I said just now, you don't have many relatives in your hometown. You can ask your parents to come over for the new year or settle down here. It's not a big problem. Our family can't do that. But have you considered a problem? Evita's expression had a hint of worry. What is it? Have you forgotten? When we went to see Steele last time, I heard the chairman say that His Highness Eric might lead the Northern Army to attack the Sac Kingdom tomorrow. Evita asked. Kali was baffled. What does this have to do with us? This is something only important people like His Highness Eric and Her Highness Seveni should consider. What are you worried about? Besides, what does this have to do with what you said? Of course it's related. Evita's expression was serious, not looking like she was joking at all. If His Highness wants to attack the Sac Kingdom, it's fine if the battle goes well, but if it doesn't go well and the Sac Kingdom counterattacks, the northern part of the kingdom will be very unsafe. I want to bring my parents to settle down in Banta City because I'm worried about this result. How could this be? Akali wanted to refute this, but she suddenly knit her brows and a trace of worry appeared on her little face. That's right, I've heard Sir Chairman say that in order to repel our new flyer, His Highness didn't order any military magic machines from our company, so the Northern Army's battle strength isn't that strong. If we really lose... Now do you understand why I'm considering this? Seeing the expression on Akali's face, Evita asked this. Moreover, in the letter my father sent me a few days ago, he said that Lawrence City and the surrounding cities are increasing their taxes. They're asking each citizen to pay at least 10 gold coins in cash or various goods to be used by the Northern Army. Now, the civilians in the cities are complaining. If His Highness wants to fight, why should we citizens pay? Akali angrily reprimanded, but she calmed down after a while. After thinking for a bit, she gave a strong nod. I understand, this matter indeed needs to be taken seriously. Evita, you're right, if the Northern Army loses, our hometown is close to the northern border, and it will be very dangerous. No, I have to rush back tomorrow and convince my parents and relatives to move out. Anyway, I've earned quite a bit of money now, it shouldn't be a problem to help them move out. It's best to have them move to Banta City. Evita nodded. Now that Banta City is developing well, we can be considered to have some success here. At least the money we earn is enough to support our families. Moreover, there are many jobs in Banta City, so they can definitely find work after coming here. No matter how you look at it, it's better than staying in their hometown. Right, I'd rather be taxed by Her Highness than be exploited by His Highness Eric. Akali angrily reprimanded His Highness Eric, before putting the report in Evita's hands. I can't wait. I'm going to pack my things now and catch the afternoon bus home. Evita, I haven't checked this report yet. Please help me take a look, I'll leave it to you. Seeing Akali say this before quickly running back to her residence, Evita couldn't help shaking her head with a smile. She put away the report and pressed the remote control in her hand. The magic airship floated up and stopped at the height of her chest. Then, under her control, it floated towards the Academy of Magic in the distance. ####. Steel rubbed her bulging stomach and looked out the window. She found that great magician Camilla was still standing in the yard, looking at the magic passenger car in front of him in a daze. She couldn't help finding it a bit funny. Grandfather was getting older, but he was becoming more like a child, actually fighting with a medium-sized magic passenger car. At the beginning of the month, it was unknown if great magician Camilla was stimulated by something, but he suddenly decided to take the driver's test. Although Sui and Steele were a bit surprised, since he made this request, the two of them naturally wouldn't go against it. But what the two of them didn't expect was that this 4-star great magician, who was incomparably powerful in terms of magic, didn't have any talent in driving a magic car. After half a month, he couldn't even pass the most basic driving test. In his rage, great magician Camilla bought a medium-sized magic passenger car from New Flyer and placed it in the Falling Star Manor, coming here to practice whenever he had free time. However, the result was still too horrible to look at. The 3 small trees in the courtyard of the Falling Star Manor were proof of that. If it wasn't for great magician Camilla's powerful magic, using his powerful magic to stop the magic passenger car that had lost control, the Falling Star Manor wouldn't have just lost 3 broken trees. Still's eyes looked over the fresh cracks on the 3 small trees before looking up at the sky. She shouted at great magician Camilla, "Grandfather, it might snow soon. How about we stop here for today?" Great magician Camilla looked back at Steele before looking back at the magic passenger car. He looked unwilling, but he was helpless. In the end, he gave a sigh and walked into the room. Seeing him like this, Steele finally couldn't help laughing. From her memories, her grandfather was like there was nothing he couldn't do. Everyone who saw him was respectful to him. Even Steele was very popular. This made Steele admire great magician Camilla since she was young, but she never thought that there would be a day when he would be troubled by something like this. Then thinking about how the magic passenger car that had troubled him was invented by her husband, Sui, and how the driver's license test was established by Sui, Steele found it even funnier. When she was about to stand up to welcome great magician Camilla in, Steele saw a horse carriage coming over from the newly built cement road outside the manor. Looking at the symbol on the horse carriage, Steele understood. She stood up and said to great magician Camilla, "Grandfather, I'm afraid I have to go out. You can eat lunch here. Vivian and Agnes will be back soon. They will make lunch with Liz, so if you want to eat something, just tell Liz." Liz on the side quickly agreed. She looked at great magician Camilla, waiting for his orders. Great magician Camilla waved his hand and doubtfully asked Steele, "Why are you going out at this time? It's about to snow, you should stay home and rest. You have to protect yourself, you can't make the slightest mistake." "There are some things to take care of that I have to personally go, otherwise it won't work," Steele replied. The horse carriage had already entered the manor and didn't stop, only stopping in front of the manor's main hall. The door opened and the Porter Chamber of Commerce's vice-chairman, who was also Chairman Porter's wife, Mia, jumped out, walking over with a smile. "Madam, everything is prepared, we're just waiting for you." Mia was very polite when facing Steele, just like a subordinate or a servant. When she came to Steele's side, she took Steele's arm from Liz's hand without any courtesy and carefully supported her. Steele had met her several times and was not used to her excessive politeness, but she couldn't say it out loud, so she could only nod with a faint smile. "All right, I'm also prepared, let's set off." After saying this, Steele turned to Great Magician Camilla and said, "Grandfather, I'm going out." Great Magician Camilla knit his brows and shook his head. "You're going out in this kind of weather like this? If Sui was here, he definitely wouldn't allow it." Steele revealed a naughty smile and gave a soft snort. "This is my job, Sui already agreed to it. Even if he was here, he couldn't go against me." Great Magician Camilla was very clear on Steele's personality. He gave a sigh and waved his hand as he said, "All right, come back early and pay attention to your safety." "That's right, Liz, you should also go with Steele. Take good care of her on the way, there definitely can't be any problems." Liz looked at Steele with a bit of hesitation. Steele's beautiful brows knit together. "Grandfather, I'm not a child, I know what to do." Great Magician Camilla gave a strong snort. "You're not the same as before, you're not allowed to be willful." Seeing that Great Magician Camilla was a bit angry, Steele could only stick out her tongue, not daring to refute him. Liz quickly came over and took back the task of supporting Steele from Mia. Seeing the three of them get into the horse carriage and leave, Great Magician Camilla gave a soft snort. "That brat Sui, he's spoiling Steele too much. When he comes back, I have to properly teach him a lesson. He can't listen to Steele for everything. He is Steele's husband after all, he has to take care of things." After looking around, Great Magician Camilla waved his hand in annoyance. "It would be great if Soul City had a communication array, I could teach that brat a lesson right now." Thinking of this, Great Magician Camilla was suddenly stunned. He stood there in a daze for a while before suddenly clapping his hands. His face was filled with joy as his eyes lit up. "That's right. A communication array is also a magic array, it can be used on magic machines." Chapter 476. The horse carriage carried Steele, Mia, and Liz out of Banta City's East Gate, coming to the lower reaches of the sandy river that wasn't far from the old city. When they stopped at the newly built dock where the sandy river entered the Sanglang Canal, they saw that other than the several dozen human workers, there were also close to 100 beastmen of different appearances. Seeing the horse carriage, the leader of the human side, Chairman Porter, and a tiger beastman who seemed to be the leader of the beastmen came forward. Steele came out of the horse carriage with Liz's help. Chairman Porter looked at her stomach and quickly said with an apologetic look, "Madam, I'm really sorry. It really has been hard for you to come out in this kind of weather." "It's nothing." Steele waved her hand with a faint smile before turning to the tiger beastman. "Lakhan, are your people all here?" The tiger beastman opened his large mouth. "They're all here. Look, they're all waiting there." Still's eyes swept over the beastmen, and she gave a satisfied nod. Then she asked Chairman Potter, "Chairman Potter, have you investigated these beastmen before? Do you think they're qualified?" Chairman Porter kept nodding with a smile. "Satisfied, very satisfied. Our fleet just needs to be strong enough and have good stamina, so they're suited." Steele turned to ask Lakhan, "Then what about you? Are you satisfied with the Porter Chamber of Commerce's conditions and work conditions?" Lakhan gave a strong nod. We're also very satisfied. The brothers all said that working here is much better than working at home." "All right, since both sides don't have any objections, let's sign the contract. I'll be the witness," Steele said. "All right. All right." Chairman Porter and Lakhan agreed at the same time. They walked into a small room by the dock and prepared to sign the contract. Actually, they had already agreed on everything, but because this was Banta City and the Lampari Kingdom's first time hiring beastmen workers, they needed the New Moon Chamber of Commerce as the only other company that had the qualifications to hire beastmen workers. In fact, it made no difference whether Steele came or not, but since this was the first time something like this had happened, Steele came in person. "Madam, the wind by the river is strong and cold. Why don't you go inside the house?" Liz reminded her softly. Steele shook his head and walked in front of the beastmen, looking at them one by one. These beastmen were similar to the beastmen she had met before. All of them were wearing tattered clothes. Some of them didn't even have a complete set of clothes, exposing a large part of their skin. Although the beastmen's physique was much stronger than ordinary humans, there were still many beastmen who were shivering from the cold with ugly expressions on their faces. Among them, there were 2 youths from the fox tribe and the rabbit tribe who had slightly weaker physiques. Their faces were green, and they looked as if they would faint from the cold at any moment. Steele could not help but frown. She turned around and called Mia over. "Arrange a place for them to stay first. Don't let them stand here. If they freeze, they won't be able to work," Steele said. Mia was a little troubled. "They aren't official workers of our Chamber of Commerce yet. It's not easy to arrange. You'll know in a while." Steele glared at her. "Arrange it first. Also, it's best to give each of them a set of clothes first." Mia was even more hesitant. "A set of clothes for each person. That'll cost a lot. Our Chamber of Commerce has just reopened, and money is tight to begin with." Steele was a little angry. "How much is a set of clothes for each person worth? If you're afraid of spending extra money, then just give them these clothes as work clothes and deduct it from their new salary. If you're worried about spending too much, then go to the Armani Chamber of Commerce and buy them. Tell them to give you a set of clothes at a low price." Seeing that Steele's tone was a little heavy, Mia did not dare to have any thoughts of refuting and hurriedly agreed. After calculating in her mind, a trace of joy appeared on her face. Since Miss Steele had spoken, then as long as she went to the Armani Chamber of Commerce, she would definitely be able to buy a set of clothes at a very low price. Then she could deduct the market price of the clothes given to the beastmen workers from their salary. Wouldn't that be a small profit? The trace of joy on Mia's face naturally could not be hidden from Steele. She thought about it and understood what Mia was thinking. She was a little angry and a little amused. Chairman Porter was clearly a very generous and far-sighted person. Sue-E had called him a merchant with a very bright future. Why did he marry such a stingy, calculating, and far-sighted wife? She clearly only needed a set of clothes to win the hearts of the beastmen workers, but she was still thinking about these things. If Chairman Porter knew what she was thinking, he would definitely be angered to death. Thinking of this, Steele's heart was suddenly startled. Have I ever unconsciously displayed the same posture when I was doing something? If she was like Mia, Sue-E would definitely be disgusted. Moreover, even if Sue-E didn't dislike it, she definitely wouldn't be able to accept herself becoming such a woman. After frowning and thinking for a while, Steele waved her hand and signaled Mia to immediately arrange for the beastmen workers to settle down. Not long after, Chairman Porter and Lockhon came out again. Steele took 2 copies of the employment contract from the 2 of them and carefully looked through it. After confirming that there were no problems, she took out her personal seal and stamped it before returning it to the 2 of them. After taking the contract, Chairman Porter and Lockhon both let out a sigh of relief. The man and beast man looked at each other and laughed at the same time. Chairman Porter took the initiative to reach out his hand to Lockhon. "Lockhon, in the future, the fleet of our Chamber of Commerce will have to rely on you and your beastmen brothers." Lockhon laughed loudly. "Don't worry, we beastmen always keep our word. Since the contract has been signed, we will definitely work hard." Although the 2 of them were chatting happily and the atmosphere was warm, Steele still poured a bucket of cold water on them. Chairman Porter, as the employer, if Lockhon and the other beastmen violate the contract, you have the right to fire them. But you have to take note that since they have already signed the contract, you have to treat them the same as normal human workers. You can't treat them differently. Of course. Madam, please rest assured. Chairman Porter smiled and nodded. Arcane, since you and the other beastmen have already accepted the employment contract, then you have to strictly follow the contract and work hard without any mistake. If you violate the contract and are fired by the Porter Chamber of Commerce, then according to the contract, depending on the severity of the case, your work permit may be revoked and you may not be able to apply for a work permit for 2 to 5 years. Therefore, please cherish this opportunity. Arcane patted his chest and loudly said, "We beastmen will definitely not be petty people who go back on our words. If we agree to something, we will definitely do it." "That's good." Steele nodded and said to Chairman Porter, "All right, my work is done, so I will go back and rest. If you have any problems with the beastmen in the future, I welcome Chairman Porter to continue to contact our New Moon Chamber of Commerce." Chairman Porter hurriedly stopped Steele, who was about to leave, and sincerely said, "Madam, there is one more thing that I need your help with." Steele looked at him with a puzzled expression. This guy, why didn't he say that there was something else? Chairman Porter awkwardly smiled and let Mia continue to arrange the beastmen's matters. He then led Steele to a sealed cabin on the other side of the pier. This cabin was built on the side of the pier near the river. It just so happened that a shed was built on the surface of the river. After entering the cabin, they could see that there were 3 small boats floating on the surface of the water. Steele looked at the 3 small boats and then looked at Chairman Porter, who had a flattering smile on his face. Her heart skipped a beat and she roughly understood what was going on. But she didn't reveal anything on the surface, just maintaining a faint smile as she waited for Chairman Porter to speak. Chairman Porter was silent for a bit before rubbing his hands and asking in an embarrassed voice, "Madam, I've heard that New Flyer is developing a new magic machine called the Magic Boat?" It really was as expected. Steele revealed a faint smile. "You're quite well informed. Is it because Sue mentioned this to you before?" Chairman Porter shook his head. "Chairman Sue has mentioned this idea to me before, but I know that New Flyer has only been developing this recently. Madam, do you know what is the current development of this magic boat? When will it be developed and can it be officially sold?" Steele shook her head. "I only know that the Academy of Magic has been developing this during this time, but the development progress, I'm not clear on it. Moreover, even if I was clear on it, it wouldn't be good to tell you. You should understand." I understand. Is this a secret?" President Potter nodded repeatedly. Chairman Porter nodded. "But I'm not asking for secrets, the main reason is to know a bit of information ahead of time. That way, as long as New Flyer can develop this magic boat, I can buy it as soon as possible." "There isn't even a trace of this magic boat right now and you want to buy it?" Steele asked. "Of course," Chairman Porter said in a strangely certain voice, "since it's something developed by New Flyer, of course it's very strong. I'm certain that this magic boat will be the same as the magic car, there won't be enough demand. I'm not willing to compete with a group of people in the future, so I hope that Madam can talk to Chairman Sue and have our company reserve a few magic boats ahead of time." Chapter 477. Chairman Sue, no matter what technology your New Flyer wants to transfer, our Veto Chamber of Commerce will reserve a copy, don't forget. Chairman Sue, it isn't just their Veto Chamber of Commerce. Our Cabran Chamber of Commerce will also reserve a copy. Our Manchu Chamber of Commerce will also do the same. Also us, seeing the enthusiastic Seoul City representatives, Sue gave a laugh before saying with a nod, "Everyone be assured, as long as our New Flyer wants to sell the technology in our hands, we will definitely consider the Seoul City and Banta City companies first. As long as Samo Count continues to be Seoul City's city lord, this promise won't change. Sitting on the side, Samo Count, who was supervising the new flyer technology transfer signing, looked at Sui and gave a nod with a faint smile, as his eyes were filled with praise. Sui adding this condition to this promise was without a doubt showing great support for him. As expected, hearing Sui's words, the Seoul City companies all expressed that they would support Samo Count's work. They would develop Seoul City together and let Samo Count stabilize his position as Seoul City's city lord forever. Hearing this, Samo Count suddenly couldn't help smiling. Are you all blessing me or cursing me? If I stay as the city lord forever, doesn't that mean I won't have a chance of promotion? The company representatives all broke out in laughter and reprimanded the company representative who had made a mistake. The scene was very peaceful and the atmosphere was very harmonious. At the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's technology transfer signing today, no matter who it was, they were all satisfied with the results. Count Sean obtained the support of the companies of Seoul City, and the companies of Seoul City obtained the household magic machine technology that they dreamed of from the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. According to the contract they signed with Sui, not only would New Flyer provide them with the technology, they would also guide them in building the factory, guaranteeing that they could turn this technology into products. At the same time, Sui promised that New Flyer wouldn't build a household magic machine factory in Seoul City. This meant that New Flyer wouldn't compete with them for the market in Seoul City. This was very good news for these companies because they were very clear that even if they obtained the technology from New Flyer, the household magic machines they produced couldn't compare to the Shinfei brand household magic machines. Moreover, New Flyer was already very famous in the Lampari Kingdom. As long as the people of the kingdom wanted to buy household magic machines, they would seriously buy the Shinfei brand. If New Flyer built a household magic machine factory in Seoul City and produced the Shinfei brand household magic machines, they wouldn't be able to compete at all. Like this, even if they bought the technology, it would be very hard for them to develop it, not to mention relying on it to make money. It was because of Sui's promise that the companies that were hesitant to buy the household magic machine technology made up their minds. The New Flyer technology transfer signing today was very popular and the company representatives all had smiles on their faces when they saw Sui, looking very polite. For Sui, the profits on the books were already very impressive. By selling the technology to the Seoul City companies, just based on the contracts he signed today, he had earned over 3 million gold coins. Although it was far from the 15 million gold coins he earned from selling the technology in Anvilmar City, this was only the profit of Seoul City alone. If he could earn this kind of profit from every city in the Lampari Kingdom, the New Flyer would earn a shocking amount just by selling the technology. Other than the profits on the books, what Sui cared more about was that through this technology transfer, over half of the companies in Seoul City were participating in the magic machine industry. Although there was still a long way to go before they could truly join the magic machine industry, Sui believed that with Samo Count here, the results would be very good. The more important thing was that with Seoul City joining the magic machine industry, it meant that the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce would have a firm foundation for the magic machine industry in the Northeast Province. If they spread it out through Seoul City, they would be able to bring the Northeast Province into the system sooner or later. If they could accomplish this goal, adding in the fact that the magic machine industry had already spread to Banta City and the surrounding cities, even Anvilmar City and other places, over half of the Lampari Kingdom would be included in the magic machine industry. At that time, the flames of the industry lit by Sui would truly spread across the Lampari Kingdom. The signing event was a complete success. As the main character of the signing event, Sui represented the Frestec Chamber of Commerce to invite the representatives of the large companies to the largest restaurant in Seoul City after the signing event. But after the banquet, Sui and Samo Count gathered together with the representatives of the 3 largest companies in Seoul City for a small meeting. Among them was the Myerda Trading Company's Chairman Sampson. Chairman Su, I'll say the same thing. I have no objections to your new flyer and the City Lord's manor taking control of the steel mill. But you're not planning on giving us the steel-making technology at all, isn't that a bit unreasonable? Chairman Sampson's expression wasn't as happy as it was at the signing event. That's right, Chairman Su, our three companies are very sincere in wanting to invest in this steel mill, but you're only having us take out the money and not letting us touch the steel-making technology. Then what are we taking out the money for? The Mobile Chamber of Commerce's Chairman Duan Sirop on the side also said with a frown. That's right, Chairman Su. Instead of having each of our companies take out 300,000 gold coins for a share, why don't you transfer the steel-making technology to us and each of our three companies can take out at least 1,000,000 gold coins to buy the technology. If you're not satisfied with this price, we can still discuss it. We don't think there's any meaning in having us invest like this. The remaining Rockefeller Chamber of Commerce's Chairman Scano Orwell also added. Su Yi's gaze swept over the three of them and he smiled. Inviting you to invest is naturally to let everyone make money together. Otherwise, our Frestec Chamber of Commerce could just build this steel mill ourselves. Why would we need to invite you to invest in it? The three of you, don't tell me you think that our new flyer is inviting you to invest because we don't have enough money? The three of them looked at each other and shook their heads. Who didn't know that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce was one of the companies with the highest profits in the Lampuri Kingdom? No matter what magic machine the Frestec Chamber of Commerce made, it would be sold out immediately. Saying that they didn't have enough money was simply a big joke. Seeing that the three of them were silent, Su Yi continued, "To be honest, I want to invite your three companies to invest in the steel mill because I hope to unite our peers in Seoul City. The reason why the City Lord's manor is also involved and led by Sir City Lord is so that you can fully support Sir City Lord's work. Otherwise, why would I bother doing this?" Chairman Sampson frowned and said with some dissatisfaction, "Chairman Su, even if you don't do this, we will still support Sir City Lord's work." Su Yi smiled and didn't explain. He looked at the three of them and said, "I know that you want to obtain the steel-making technology, but I'm sorry. I might consider transferring the technology in the future, but I can't do it at this stage. The steel mill isn't just used to make money, it also needs to undertake important military work. We can't be careless in this regard." Military work? The three of them turned to look at Count Samoyed in surprise. Count Samoyed took a sip of tea and nodded. "That's right. The steel produced by this steel mill will be used to upgrade Seoul City's military. As for how it will be done, you don't need to ask." The three of them quickly nodded. After looking at each other, Chairman Sampson asked Su Yi, "Chairman Su, you just said that you will consider transferring or selling the steel-making technology in the future, right?" "That's right." "Then how about we sign an agreement? If New Flyer wants to transfer or sell the steel-making technology in the future, our three companies will have priority." Sui pondered for a moment before slowly shaking his head. "I'm afraid that won't do. I can only guarantee that you will be in the first batch of companies. As for how you will transfer or sell it, that will depend on the situation." Chairman Sampson and the other two looked at each other with helpless expressions. Even though Su Yi was very forceful and didn't give them any room for discussion, New Flyer had the absolute advantage in this regard. No matter how forceful Su Yi was, they couldn't do anything. After thinking for a while, Chairman Sampson slowly nodded. "All right, our Myerda Trading Company is willing to invest 300,000 gold coins in this steel mill." Chairman Sirop and Chairman Orwell looked at each other before nodding in unison. After sending off the three of them, Count Samoyed looked at Su Yi with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Heh, Su Yi, you brat, tying up those three companies isn't just to support my work, right?" Su Yi had a wronged expression. "Sir City Lord, how can you say that? I'm wholeheartedly thinking for you, yet you're doubting me." Count Samoyed waved his hand. All right, put away that face of yours. Do you think I don't understand you? If it wasn't beneficial to you, it would be strange if you were willing to do it. Sui gave a laugh. I am a merchant, isn't it natural for me to fight for my own benefits? Count Samoyed nodded. That's more like it. But Sui, why can't I see any benefits for you or your new flyer from this matter? I remember that the steel mill should be the most stable source of income for your company, right? Giving a portion to those 3 companies like this, what benefits do you have? It's not the gold coins that are considered benefits, Sui said with a faint smile. Sir City Lord, have you noticed a common point between those 3 companies? Count Samoyed knit his brows. I only know that those 3 companies are the top companies in Seoul City. This isn't important. Sui shook his head. The common point that I care about is that those 3 companies all trade with the Sak Kingdom. Count Samoyed was a bit surprised. He looked at Sui with wide eyes and said in a deep voice, What do you want to do? Sui's lips curled slightly, revealing a smile of deep meaning. Sir City Lord, perhaps you haven't heard of a term called trade invasion. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.